terms of us being kind of the only one still under, white rule, which we are, white supremacy. I also think it's important to note that, our history, our globalist history is very different. I mean, and we weren't members of the Commonwealth. We weren't, subject to colonization in the same way, that European countries colonized Africa and maintained kind of this trafficking back and forth between the colony and the nation state. And so we have been separated. And I think it's very important that we, do get the ability to center. And I love that you introduced that word, Maisha, to center our experience as different. And I don't think that different and distinct has to mean divided. So, I would ask that, our diasporic brethren and sistren allow African Americans in this country to create that distinct identity and the space and hold space for us to do so, understanding that, it's not that dissimilar from Jamaicans holding a distinct space or Haitians holding a distinct space for themselves.
May I also add that getting back to the question of is ADOS xenophobic in terms of the casting of British actors or non-American actors, that topic boiled over because people started to say that African American actors are not as good because we're not as trained, or we think too much of our history when we're playing our own roles about our history. That's when the outrage really started boiling over. Our roles are being played by other people because of the idea that they're better than us and that we bring too much pain to the role. And then Daniel Kaluuya, I understand he's casted as Fred Hampton, but he's playing this significant role. Is it appropriate for him at the same time to be talking about how he doesn't want to talk about race?
Right. Can I add an anecdotal, some evidence?
Wait, sorry, Maisha. Before you do that, I'm so sorry, but sure, everybody keeps taking the Daniel Kaluuya quote out of context, and I just think it's not helpful. Like, when he actually did that interview, what he said was that he was tired of the fact that every time he was being asked about his process, etc., it always centered on racism, and sometimes he just got exhausted, which I think is something that we can all like that's happened to a lot of people who are constantly asked about stuff. So if you can say that he probably wasn't the right person, that's fine, but I think we need to be careful to stop taking things out of context in order to fit our narrative, because that's not helpful either.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. And so, really quick, hold on, I just want to touch on that.
Based on race.
One mic, Maisha, and then
yeah, I was just going to add something anecdotal. You know what? As I'm a native of California, and I'm second generation critical of the Hollywood white supremacist narrative. I was actually raised, we were raised not to watch TV and not to believe in Hollywood because it was a vehicle or as a principle, a tool of reproducing white supremacy. My father and his generation, they all had the opportunity to go to Hollywood and become actors, because they were talented dancers and gifted artists in several ways, but they actually refused that. So another thing that I think is being glossed over in this, in this overemphasis now on the visual and success as far as, getting the bag, so to speak, is that, there were a couple of generations of Black performers who refused Hollywood as a white supremacist narrative, just like they refuse other white supremacist narratives, such as, and anti-Black narratives. So, this, again, I just bring that up as a anecdotal piece of history that, that people may not be aware of.
And may I also add, Vanessa?
Sorry, I think it was Andre next, and then you can chime in.
Yeah, I guess to whoever made the point about Daniel Kaluuya, I'm not too familiar with his interviews either way. But I suppose if he was tired of talking about race, then there would be abundance of, I guess, statements or interviews where he was discussing it. That's something we could, unpack later. But I just wanted to say to the topic of the room, because I've been waiting a while. And Luti, I did hear, you say, give your reasoning for around creating the room, and it was a little disheartening. Um, and because you acknowledged that reparations were owed, and it seems that you did that unequivocally. And so, in that sense, at least, we can distinguish the ADOS movement, which is singularly focused on obtaining reparations for American descendants of slaves. And then there are American descendants of slaves who have their own opinions and ideologies. And but I think it's really important that we separate those. But I guess to the topic, it's such a, I guess disheartening and somewhat insulting. So let me just say, I watched this show called Bob and Abishola. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but there's a Nigerian woman who's being courted by this white guy. Watched the show, loved it, think it's funny. Gets to this one episode where she's discussing with her family the hierarchy of men that they are allowed to date, and African Americans were, she goes through all these other races, and then intentionally the show puts African Americans at the bottom. The issue with that was that I wasn't even surprised. And I would have asked to poll the question, if you could blink your mics, if you have heard similar sentiments being stated in, your African families or households or any, you know, that, not to date or, be weary of African American people. Because that's something that I have always heard from my African friends. And, I understand whatever. That was not something that's, it wasn't surprising. It has always been the idea that, Africans distinguish themselves from African Americans. And I personally look at my African friends and their cultures as a, uh, something not somewhat to, appreciate. I look at the culture and say, oh, wow, they have this, they do this. What are some things that I can take from their cultures to bring into mine? But at all, at every stage of, I guess my adulthood, at least, I have always felt that Africans in, with first generation or whatever, came from families that were xenophobic as it related
Sorry,
to the African American culture.
Andre, I'm gonna let you finish. Andre, I'm gonna let you finish, but real quick, just to make it very very clear. ADOS as a term refers to the political organization, and ADOS is also a way of describing a group of people which includes hundreds of millions of, or however many African Americans there are, right? And so the question is, ADOS xenophobic? It's not around our American descendants of slaves xenophobic. That's ridiculous. I won't make such an assertion, but is the political movement and its leadership and the rhetoric that comes from it xenophobic? So I wasn't calling African Americans xenophobic. I hope you're not saying that actually, no, Africans, or maybe you are more, maybe Africans are more xenophobic, because I'm not trying to pit against our people. If anything, it's about a message of solidarity and Pan-Africanism, which I'm trying to evoke. But I just wanted to make that clarification, that we're not questioning African Americans as a whole, but rather this particular organization, which is a political one.
Okay, well, I appreciate that clarity.
Luti, I think the title should, some more nuance in the title might help, because there are people who jump into the conversation.
I wish I could edit it.
Yeah, it can't be edited.
Also, there are people who are in the audience. I'm getting people sort of messaging me that there are no ADOS, the political movement, representatives in the conversation. So if there's a way to, if there are people here in the conversation who are from that organization and can speak to it or clarify or help kind of guide the discussions, maybe Luti or and can help, can bring them up and kind of get them in the conversation.
Yeah, that's really important. But Dan, just wanted to say I'm actually receiving messages.
Yeah,
I'm actually receiving
but now they're talking about is ADOS xenophobic? Are they racist?
So I'm actually receiving messages now from people, or any of the people from.
Well, can I finish my point and then I'll head out?
Yeah, can Andre go, and then can we keep the order for the most part?
I think we're still waiting.
Yeah, Main
who was
has
next.
to go, and then Kai is next. But Andre, finish your point, and then we can continue back to the order.
So if the idea that the movement is xenophobic is just absurd. I think it's clear in its message and suggesting that it's singular in its goal of obtaining reparations from America for American descendants of slaves. And it seems that many of the people have already attested that they believe that reparations are owed. So the frustrating thing for me is that I would have never expected to be in a conversation like this with other melanated people. This is quite eerie in how similar this conversation is. This is the same conversation that I have with white people who oppose reparations. But because what it seems to me is that Black people are in a position, or right now trying to find an identity for themselves and lift themselves up, in the sense that if this country was built on the back of Black people, American descendants of slaves, when we are trying to lift our back and straighten our back, there's always been pushback. And there is nothing unclear about the message that the ADOS movement is pushing, but the fact that we're in a conversation centered like this, uh, it is extremely confusing, disheartening, and so
What do you want to do?
I can't understand how we would be in this position right now having the conversation with you.
Andre, I think a lot of it comes a lot. This is more of a question, so I know it may come off as an inference. I got invited to the conversation itself, but I think it's centered around some of the very tense and very directed, pointed rhetoric um, from sort of the organization towards this group. So I think I think it's an important discussion that needs to happen internally, so that people can coalesce around the idea, which I actually wanted to do a poll and see if there are people who actually disagree with the idea that African descendants of slaves should, separate and apart from every other group, get specific targeted reparations. I think getting that sort of as a poll might sort of get the temperature of the room generally, and then we can kind of more discuss kind of are some of the rhetoric and the language, and kind of and then maybe even broaden it to the ideology. Is it xenophobic or not?
Can I?
Yeah, can I
Can I
jump
ask
in?
a question?
I'm trying to
But
jump in.
there is an order in and main these people have been waiting for hours.
Yeah.
So main you're up next, and then Kai, and then we can kind of maybe go to Dre. I think Dre wanted to say something a little bit later. Okay.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks, Dan Juma. Thanks, everybody. Good to hear everybody's points. I think this is actually pretty pretty amazing conversation. Just I'm first generation Caribbean, born in New York, and growing up, I definitely would hear some some family members and how they would give their stereotypical points on Black Americans and XYZ. So I've been around in those conversations from a personal perspective. So I'm aware of the fact that Black Americans do get some energy coming from individuals who are immigrants, and how they perceive them. um, and I've also been aware of me being able to travel around the world and seeing different cultures and perspectives. I'm also very aware how impactful Black American culture is, and how unique and powerful it is. And I think Black Americans should 100% acknowledge their culture and their impact that they have been able to give to society as a whole. I think um, ADOS, I think definitely, I don't think it's xenophobic. I think the core of it is to, give acknowledgement and identity to a community that
thus far has probably been in the bottom of the totem pole when you look at certain things. So I think, and the core of it is not, focused on that way. Definitely, there are extreme members who probably are coming into the conversations and giving their own personal issues and trauma, around things that they personally felt. Someone mentioned earlier that, Clubhouse might not be the best place to kind of fully grasp this conversation. Also, the context of everybody doing their own research and understanding to find out what ADOS is, what it means to them, what it might mean for other people is going to be really, really valuable. But ultimately, I think, if ADOS is to succeed in getting reparations, I definitely think should be given, to individuals. If they are able to succeed, then, yes, other, subsets or, parallels of the Black experience globally will be able to succeed as well. What's going on with CARICOM, what's going on in other areas of subsets of individuals who are trying to get their own individual rights recognized will also be able to succeed as well. So, there are some elements, to answer the question, there are some elements that may seem xenophobic, but that might be some bad apples in the conversation that are coming, with their own personal grievances, which they have right to do so. But I think as a whole, I don't necessarily think that's the point or the focus of it. And, that's all I want to say on that.
Thank you, Maine. Thank you. Yeah, those are really good points to keep in mind. I think there's definitely always some points that are superheated, and we need to be very sensitive to those people who are superheated, because it's for a reason. It's not out of being malicious or wanting to divide Black people further, but it's because of a certain pain. And as the larger Black community, we really need to always bear that at the forefront of our mind. If someone's heated, there's hurt there, so hear them out. If we don't hear them out, what chance do we have in the world? Like, who are they going to vent to? So just keep that in mind always.
I'm still kind of conscious of the fact that was cut off earlier on because there was a little bit of a antagonist in the group earlier on that I think's left now. I just wonder if we're going to make space for her to say anything, finish her comments that she was cut off from earlier on.
Sorry, who was it that was cut off?
When there was somebody else in the group that was kind of making some controversial points, she was cut off. I'm just wondering if she was finished or.
We've kind of moved on from that, but just quickly, I want to say that okay, you all have now in this conversation we've progressed to making a distinction between ADOS people and the ADOS movement. So my question to people who are saying that perhaps they disagree with the movement, what are the official points of the movement that you could possibly refer to based on ADOS101.com, or maybe some tweets by Yvette Carnell or Antonio Moore that you disagree with? What are the specific agenda points of the ADOS movement that you all find problematic or xenophobic versus the personal experiences of coming across somebody with trash, xenophobic ideas of, saying that stereotyping Africans, stereotyping Caribbeans. And one point
I'll give you one. I'll give you one
yeah.
real quick. Honestly, the from ADOS 101, I didn't have much critique of it. Although, yeah, I didn't have any critique of it. What more so I was referring to is the rhetoric, and as someone else very articulately put, the rhetoric on Clubhouse, at least in my interactions with ADOS. But I did read a long piece by Talib Kweli that I encourage you guys to go read. He's one of my rap heroes, and it's on Medium, and it's called "Why ADOS is Trash." Receipts attached. And in there he refers to the fact that Yvette, not a tweet but a YouTube video that she posted, was Pan-Africanism is dead, and that hurts my feelings, man.
Can I speak to that piece of it?
Okay. Someone was gonna talk.
Was it me or Money?
That ADOS is trash piece comes up a lot. First of all, I am ADOS, but I have nothing to do with the ADOS as an organization. Um, I'm more lean to the side of FBA, which is Foundational Black Americans, which is we don't have, we wouldn't say we have a leadership, nor is it a political designation. Um, that hat, as far as the MAGA hat, you have to watch the whole video. It was just a prop. Yeah, I say that all the time. And to separate the distinctions, meaning that if a first generation Jamaican or someone from the Caribbean comes over here into the States in America and commits a crime, it's a black crime. All black people get designated for that crime. There's no distinction when it comes to that crime. And we trying to say, yo, we didn't do that. Somebody else did that. And why we can getting the blame for it all. So a distinction has to be made. As far as being xenophobic, yeah, I would agree. There's some xenophobic aspects of the organization that's true. So I can't deny it. I would embrace it and keep going.
But you're speaking for FBA, right? Not ADOS.
I am ADOS.
You're
FBA,
ADOS, but you're not part of the movement. You're FBA. Speak for your group. You're taking away from a very positive movement.
I'm not taking
not
away from anything.
You're FBA, not ADOS.
One mic. Honey, you're next.
I will classify myself as FBA and not ADOS. When the ADOS movement first started, I was front line and center with the ADOS movement. My interactions with Yvette and Tone has led me to the decision not to be a part of that political organization. I can come and defend ADOS all I want to because I am ADOS. If I decide I want to be FBA, then I'm FBA. Y'all don't bring up the Tariq Nasheed in this particular conversation. She can finish talking when she wants to talk.
Okay, I want to just make a distinction that the FBA movement and the ADOS movement are two entirely different movements.
Please explain, because I don't know. I've heard both, but we don't know.
So this has to be very clear because FBA tried to overtake ADOS. It's led by Tariq.
That's a lie. That is a lie.
That he's
false.
Okay.
One mic.
To make is that FBA is very different, and we don't want an FBA. We don't want FBA to be confused for ADOS. So we have to make that very clear. We understand that you are ADOS. We understand ethnically you are ADOS as well. You fall under that category. But for those of us in the ADOS movement, we acknowledge the distinction between FBA and ADOS. And FBA.
That's correct. But if you're not your vet or Tone, you can't speak for ADOS the way the structure is set up.
Some of us on here are authorized to speak.
Now that FBA has been brought into the conversation, so that you're able to see that derailing. But yeah.
Sorry, can you just explain the difference between the two?
Yeah, what does that abbreviation mean? I understand ADOS, but what's this new other one?
FBA is Foundational Black Americans. It's the same thing. It's just that one group is led by, well, it's not led by. One group has no leaders, but the acronym was created by Tariq Nasheed, and the other group, which is ADOS, is Tone and Yvette. That's the only difference. ADOS has an issue with Tariq. That's the only thing. That's the only issue with FBA and ADOS. That's it. There's no other issue. Zero.
There are ADOS chapter leaders in the chat that would like to speak on that matter.
Please, if you're an ADOS chapter leader, please speak. And if you're not, please
don't. My name is Connie. I'm going to try to keep it brief. So many things have been said in this chat, and I know some of this is going to be repetitive. Please let me work through about 6 points. I'll go through them as quickly as possible.
Just before you do, Connie, just confirming, you are from ADOS. Could you introduce yourself?
Right? Oh, yes. I'm Connie Collins. I'm with ADOS. I'm from Los Angeles, California. So I'm not going to get distracted by like other groups and things. So please, work with me. Please be patient. I'm going to try to go through this quickly just based on some things I heard. So one of the first things I heard when I came into this room, and I didn't plan on speaking, but it has to be clarified. Someone was on here and she said, oh, well, they need scholars and they're not rooted in facts and data, and we shouldn't be on here bandying about opinions. So I'm going to ask everyone, please give us the respect of at least having gone to ADOS101.com and reading up on us before jumping into rooms and espousing your opinions, because we're a very formal group with chapters all over the United States. We work with one of the leading top economists in the United States, Dr. Sandy Darity. He has a book called From Here to Equality. We are very data and facts driven. We're very politically savvy ethnic group and political advocacy group that is specifically fighting for reparations. So that is who we are. The next point is I'm hearing people, I hear this in all rooms. I'm not saying this is an anti ADOS room, but there is a lot of anti ADOS rhetoric. And, I'm in most of these rooms and we're always being accused of being aggressive and rude and all these things. And I'm not hearing this. And what is framing that narrative is people are in their emotions because they haven't read up on it. So when we say things like we're ADOS, I've had people tell me, "Oh, that's divisive," and I go, "Okay, well, you're Somalian. So when you say you're Somalian, should my feelings be hurt?" They don't have anything to say. I go, "When Latinos say they're Latino, is that divisive?" All we're doing is asserting our ethnicity. And then they say, we're aggressive and we're rude when we point out that immigration policies are negatively impacting ADOS. That's a fact. It's rooted in fact and data. A quick Google search will show you that. Or you can go to our website. This is not specifically addressed against Black immigrants. It's just odd that only Black immigrants are insulted by this movement. Latinos are also pushing for immigration reform. Immigration is also hurting Black immigrants. If you look at the maldistribution of the immigration quota, you will see that immigrants come in here in the Black immigrants are allowed to come in here in the smallest numbers. So in fact, you should be working with us to limit um, the quotas that allow white immigrants to be pouring in here and Latinos. There could be more opportunity and we could figure out how to work through things. I'm going to keep going, trying to talk fast. So let's try to not base these things on like feelings and emotions. Let's just try to come from an informed place. And then another thing, when we're talking, someone mentioned centering. If if I were talking to a Nigerian and they say, "Oh, this happened to us in the Biafra War, and we're going to go after our government to get reparations for you know our valuables and our wages that were stolen or whatever," what would I look like to start telling them, "Oh, well, we struggle too here in America. Our fight for and for ADOS is very specific, and this is what people are missing. This is a debt. It's not like we're going to Jeff Bezos or someone that's wealthy and saying, 'Give me a handout. You have more money than I do.' This is a debt owed for slavery, for harms caused to us from the United States, for peonage, convict leasing, redlining, Jim Crow, horrific medical experimentations, denial of Social Security benefits, denial of GI benefits, denial of unemployment, mass incarceration, police brutality. We have a grievance. American descendants of slavery have a grievance against the United States. That is a legal justice claim. So other people may have a grievance with the United States, but they have a different grievance. So if people want to say I have a Jamaican um, um, a Jamaican descendant of slavery claim, that should be brought, and we support that. I'm almost done. Um, oh, no one ever says anything. People have mentioned CARICOM on here. CARICOM has been fighting for Jamaican reparations for years, but I don't see anybody going for their neck. If you Google African organizations in the United States, it's a bazillion of them. None of them are working on our behalf, but we're not screaming at them. Now to get to the immigrant piece, what a lot of you guys don't know, somebody said, "Well, if Daniel Kaluuya said those things, it would be all over the place." Well, it is. We've been talking about these things for years. You guys might not be aware of it because we're the people that are being harmed. So we have people like Cynthia Erivo, who's Nigerian, calling us ghetto. You can Google it, calling Black Americans ghetto, akata, stupid, without culture. Somebody said that Daniel Kaluuya was taken out of context. This is why we get upset. An ADOS actor understands you are always going to discuss racism. That is the pride that we have. When you play a role like Martin Luther King, you have an obligation to discuss racism. You don't get to say you're tired. He was one of our civil rights leaders. An ADOS actor would never do that. They know that is a chance to advance a conversation. So the callousness towards our lineage is astounding, and that's what we're talking about. Um, and so back to like Lovey, there's a lot of particularly Nigerian actors and celebrities and influencers that we've caught online and elsewhere just talking like mad shit about us and then playing our roles. Nigerians don't seem to understand, like, oh, when we say yes, we're all black, but we're different. They were in an uproar when what is her name? Oh gosh, Lupita Nyong'o was playing one of their iconic leaders. They were in an uproar. Japanese don't play Koreans. White people don't get to play Indians anymore. And for those of you who are gonna start saying, "Oh, Will Smith played this role, and what's his name? Forrest Whitaker played Idi Amin." We all agree we're in 2020. Continental Africans should play Continental Africans. West Indians should play West Indians. But this is a country that we've been in, and we are rooted here, and we should be able to play our icons. And the industry, the United States is using immigrants. They're pitting us against one another, and too many Black immigrants are coming here and are way too eager to be a tool of white supremacy and to look down on us when we fought for this 1965 Immigration Act for specifically Africans to come here. They were specifically excluded. You can Google anything I say. Asians, Mexicans, and Africans. And our civil rights leaders, John Lewis and Adam Clayton Powell and others, fought for Black immigrants to come here only for us to be told that we're cultureless, we're baby mamas. After all of our contributions to this country, after all of our inventions, after everything we've done to further humanitarian interest around the globe, to have our Black brothers and sisters come here and tell us we're not shit. Come on. And you guys go, oh, you guys are rude. That's rude. You can't come into another person's home and tell them they're not shit and how to emote. Last things, we're at the bottom. We are American citizens. We earn less than every ethnicity in this country, including new immigrants. So, having said that, understand that this fight is about our survival. We are due our reparations from our government who harmed us. I could never and would never go to another country and tell them, oh, I've lived here 20 years. So, yeah, when you get your reparations, I should get a part of that because we both have Black skin. That's disingenuous. So, in closing, I'm just going to say we need to do better, understand what this movement is about. How can you say I'm for reparations for ADOS and then say, but what about this? But what about that? Sit back, put your ego on check. Please stop accusing us of being xenophobic and lying on us. This is so disingenuous. Thank you all for listening. Have a beautiful, blessed day.
Hi, honey.
Can I
ask
say something?
questions?
Yes.
Okay, sorry not to interrupt, but I've been waiting to speak, and I want to ask questions directly to you, Connie, in reference to ADOS.
In reference to
ADOS?
Okay.
ADOS. And so my first question would start with, does ADOS have a delineation or distinctive elimination of Afrocentric Americans or immigrants?
I genuinely don't understand the question, but I'm going to answer it in the way that I think I understand it. The only ethnic delineations that we have is that we recognize and uplift all Black ethnicities. So we acknowledge that everyone is Black. We understand that there are Black Nigerians, Black Haitians, Black Dominicans, Black Trinidadians, and we are Black ADOS.
Does that answer your question,
Thank
Monique?
you. I think so. The other question is, from the other movements that have happened in American history, such as the National Coalition of Black Reparations in America, as well as the National African American Reparations Commissions that was established in 2015, and then in COBRA in 1987. How does ADOS differ from those other coalitions that have been started, I guess, years ago?
Okay, so one, I'll briefly, I'm not going to get into the ideologies of other groups because that is not my place, but I will say this. Firstly, the term American descendants of slavery has been being used all the way back since the 1600s. Frederick Douglass frequently use that term. And I'm going to get to your point. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King have always referred to us American descendants of slavery. I got to touch on this point about Martin Luther King that a lot of people don't know. White supremacy always props him up as a very docile, respectable Negro type. He was assassinated when he got with Malcolm X and others and realized that we are a poor people and he needed to start talking about economics and the uplift of Black people. So he gave a speech where he said, I fear that I have led my people into a burning house. And then he said, we're coming for our check. So these reparations movements have been going on long before the groups that you mentioned. So now to touch on what you're asking me, one of the things that we're working on, and one of the things I didn't tell you guys, we're extremely organized. We've had legislation passed in different states. You can Google this. Reparations legislation passed. We write legislation. We lobby. We're very active. We're not a social media group. We're not a hashtag group. We're real people doing real work on the ground. So having said that, groups like Cobra and these other groups, they've been around forever, but they haven't been successful. So when Yvette Carnell, you can watch her at Breaking Brown on YouTube, and Antonio Moore at Tone Talks. Since they've been speaking about this, they've been able to mobilize. I'm sorry, somebody's pinging me. They've been able to mobilize in a way that no other group ever has, and to point to evidentiary proof is to say prior to COVID, on every presidential debate stage, you heard about reparations. You're hearing about reparations in a way that you never have. So that means that this is a successful movement. And that's why it's important for people to stop derailing it. This is what white supremacy wants. Now, in order to get reparations, there is a process. People, for some reason, just to dispel any myths, ADOS is not going to get that pot of money and distribute it. Reparations have been given to many a group throughout history. And there's a process that you have to follow. So the first is to present a bill, which has been done for years by Congressman John Conyers, who passed away. He presented it every year. This is the first time that bill is being seriously scrutinized. We are pressing for some of the language to be amended. And I'll give you an example, like in Cobra. We don't want to get enriched off of this. So in Cobra has some language in that bill that says that you have to have a commission that studies the needs of the people asking for reparations. So they put in there that they want, I don't know how many people, a commission of, I don't know if it was 5 to 7, and they should make 250,000 a year. We think that's dangerous. That means that people may work in their self-interest. We don't want that. There's a lot of language that is not specific to American descendants of slavery. So having said that, we believe that we are a group that is laser focused on reparations, but the little known piece that people are overlooking, particularly Black immigrants, is the fact that the rest of the reparations package on the Black Agenda tab on ADOS101.com has specific tangibles for every Black American in the United States. So all of those institutions that I mentioned that we were deprived of beyond slavery, like the redlining, which is housing, healthcare, all of that. If you go to the tab, everything we're fighting for is for every Black American to get free healthcare, interest-free home loans, free insurance, all types of stuff. So we're fighting across the board, but we are very specific that pure cash reparations should go to us because it is a debt. We are owed that, not because we're Black and we live here. We literally were discriminated against, and our 14th Amendment equal protection rights were violated. So having said that, I hope I answered your question. I hope I wasn't too long-winded.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
You made some really great points. I know personally for me, I want to know what ADOS is fighting for so I can figure out how I can help, because a win for ADOS is a win for us all. So thank you for highlighting the website, all the agendas that are on there, and I personally will be looking into those and figuring out how to support them.
Appreciate you.
Yeah,
Connie, quick question. Sorry, is there? Because I think what would be really helpful are there specific tangible things that with regards to, because my philosophy has always been that as
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. There are specific tangible things. No, it was my phone.
are there things that the broader Black community that's not part of ADOS can do to actually help sort of further this movement? Because I think the question kind of it's always been framed. The reason that this group even exists, in my own understanding, is that it's been framed less as a we're fighting to get something, or maybe parallel to that, but also we all these other people that are in the room need to get out of the room first, and then we can kind of go. Then we can kind of go fight. So is there a way? Is there beyond kind of just saying we support this or getting out of the way? Are there things that we can actually do to help?
Most definitely.
Kind of make sure that this movement meets its goal.
Yeah, most definitely. So the first thing, let's keep in mind when we're on Clubhouse, ADOS is very on code and has a very specific message, but then we get into rooms and people come and take it left and right and want to argue about we're being divisive. But if you go into a room that's heavily ADOS led, it's very educational. The second part is please go to ADOS101.com, read up. If you have some real issues with what's in there, what the founders are saying, please bring it to us. The last thing is the first thing that anybody in this room can do that wants to be an ally. We have tons of allies. We have allies on Clubhouse that are non-ADOS that lead rooms. We have allies in real life. Of late, I'm even seeing LGBTQ groups and queer trans groups coming for our neck saying they're not centered. Nobody should be centered as far as ADOS. It's for all ADOS. We're not going to center elderly people, children, LGBTQ. That's counter to our movement. But as a Black immigrant, one of the first things you can do is be the best human you can and put any biases that have been instilled in you, put that aside. Get on the right side, fight for your Black brothers and sisters in their country for the debt that is owed them. The second thing that you can do, if you like, is reach out to a chapter. You can Google them. There's chapters in every state. You can find them on Facebook, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse. So you can get involved. All of us who got involved, many people don't know this. We just jumped up and started chapters on our own. And we're actually in the street working like I'm on here right now trying to juggle my job and speak to everyone on here because it is so important to us. This is our survival. So that's one of the things you can do. The next thing that you can do and start educational rooms. I've seen this whole conversation morph. There's whole other rooms that I've gone into with Black immigrants that came in onto this platform and were like, oh my God, who are these just wild, crazy, um, Black Americans? They're just rude and nasty, and they think they're better than us. They are now holding whole chats where they're educating themselves and breaking that mentality that we're less than. And so that's one of the things you can do. If you're called for jury duty, there's little things you can do. If you have Black skin, they're called for jury duty, show up for jury duty. That's how they're taking us to jail. If there's a protest, we're not big protesters. Get out, be active, do something, write checks, use your imagination. If you're a PR person, put that to use to educate. I could go on and on and on and on. People can do whatever they normally do in their real life to be an asset. If you're in healthcare, mental health, join an ADOS group or start your own group or whatever for Black people collectively to heal. We are a traumatized people. That's why we're even having this argument. Um, People are actually operating out of fear and emotion, like, oh my God, they don't want to be associated with us. They're going to leave us alone. Here we are, we're vulnerable again. We all feel the same way. So it's time to come together. But, thank you for asking that question.
Connie, in the spirit of coming together, actually, I got a real quick question. What is ADOS, the political organization's take on the Black Lives Matter movement? Do you guys collaborate? Are you guys working in partnership? Is this something you're hugely in support of and they support you guys?
We definitely do not align with Black Lives Matter. And that's all I'm going to say. Like I said, I don't want to use this room to speak on other organizations. But if you will notice one thing about ADOS, we are doing the work. Everyone else, you can look around, ask them what they are actually doing. we can cite win after win after win, effort after effort after effort. So if you want to know who is not grifting and who is actually doing work, just go visit everyone's website, see where their money's going. We don't even have money. And the things that we're doing, we're all self funded.
Can I comment on
Hi,
that as
Connie.
well? Can I comment on that as well?
Go ahead. Yeah, Paige.
So my name is Majay. I'm an ADOS chapter leader in Alabama, and I want to answer Luddy's question a little bit, but also I think it speaks to a question that somebody else asked earlier about what's the difference between us and other reparations movements. Is that I think we're different in the way because we challenge the system in a way that nobody else really has before. I think too often in the past, a lot of our black organizations have kind of taken this viewpoint that we're going to infiltrate the system and change things from the inside, and it just hasn't worked. Um, what it does is like those individuals get in there and they adopt the perspectives and viewpoints of the white power structure and the fact that they just decide that they're going to neglect black folks, or they're going to dilute the things that they ask for over time. And ADOS we just haven't shaken. We've stood on our square. We haven't compromised, and we continue to challenge the system to make a significant investment in our community. In terms of Black Lives Matter, it just I think originally it started off very focused on police brutality, but I think it's just kind of become like a progressive platform that includes everything for everybody. And ADOS is just so laser focused, and we spend so much energy advocating for one particular thing, um, that we've just kind of drilled such a deep hole in this one particular area, and I think that's why we're making such an impact. We've been able to center reparations in the political discussion, and we don't even have any funding. We don't have billions of dollars in funding. The ADOS chapter leaders, we do this work for free. Like the Breaking Brown and the ADOS101.com, that is funded off of like just poor black people across the country who tune into these YouTube shows and throw $5, $10 in every couple of weeks when we can. So I think that speaks to how effective we can be if we actually had like a ton of support from the rest of like black society. So I've been really proud of what we've done. We passed a reparations bill, which was written by ADOS advocates in California, which is the fifth largest economy in the world. Um, to me, that's remarkable, but most people haven't done it because we haven't been embraced by like the Democratic establishment or the mainstream media. They kind of like overlook our accomplishments, and even going so far as to create smears against us. So I think that's certainly one difference between us and these other organizations, that we challenge this system to do better for us, and they treat us like we do.
I'd like to ask you, Connie and Majay, a question. I think from everything that I've heard the past few days in rooms with Yvette and also Connie and some other folks here, it does seem that ADOS has a very strategic plan that focuses on defining the ethnic group, and then just in defining that ethnic group as the most disenfranchised, using the data to back it. But still within uh, African communities, or Black American, or immigrant communities in America, a lot of people are still repeating that they feel the messaging and the rhetoric is xenophobic. So I would like to ask, just the same as when white people tell us that they are not racist, but that's not enough to hear that they are not racist. They have to actively be anti-racist. How is ADOS actively being anti-xenophobic and even anti-transphobic and anti-LGBTQ phobic? And I just want to know exactly what your plan is there.
May I ask you, we don't have a plan for any of that because we aren't xenophobic. So if someone here can point to anything that's xenophobic on our website, you've heard me speak, you've heard, hold on,
hearing that it's xenophobia.
Hold on.
Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
I started out my discussion this morning about how that is coming about. So that narrative needs to be put to rest unless people can point out that we're xenophobic or that we're excluding anyone. We're not going to center anyone in this fight for reparations. There are no subtypes. We're all ADOS. So that means everybody gets the same cash payout, whether you're LGBTQ or whatever. So we're just not, we think it's counterproductive to allow people to keep coming in and taking us off message when all we need to do is focus on getting reparations.
I have thoughts on that
Lucy, may
as
I?
well.
I've been waiting for a while, and I think it's my turn in the order, and I'd like to
Yeah,
respond.
Kai, you've been extremely patient. You are definitely next.
All right. I'll just respond to both Connie and Marlo, and with my whole what I wanted to share. So thanks again for letting me talk and be on the stage, and I think Ludi and Kimberly and Donj are doing a great job steering this conversation. And there's been really great discourse, that's challenged and brought in my perspective. So I thank everyone who's been ahead of me for that. And I personally completely disagreed with just about all of Connie's positions, but at the same time, I think she made some very informative points in a civil manner. So I was able to understand the ADOS platform in a better way. So I thank her for that. And I'm glad that you gave Connie the space and the time to defend herself, because Black women need more of that grace. I'm just going to preface what I have to say by saying that on paper, I am as American. I'm as American as they come. And that's not a matter of patriotism. It's just basic genealogy. And this country, regardless of how I feel about it, that's all I know, which is why I can speak on it. And I'm a Black American who was born in Baltimore, but I was raised in the Bay Area of California. And I have the privilege of being able to track my lineage back 5 generations to Black people who have consistently lived in Baltimore and Maryland. And but now that that's just a disclaimer that's gotten out of the way, let's get into the topic at hand. And I would really appreciate if no one interrupted me, because I've been super respectful of every talking point that's been made for the last like hour and a half, 2 hours that I've been sitting on the stage quietly. So for one, let's just be mindful of the language that we use when we're trying to make our points. Because ADOS is actually not an ethnicity, it's a nationality, because it's tied to the country versus specific ethno-cultural groups within the country, because there's so many, and there were slaves who spoke French and Creole, and there were others who were assimilated into New England culture. And Black Americans are not monolithic, so that is not whatsoever an ethnicity. And the acronym and the identity of ADOS is one thing, and it's harmless in nature. And I think that, obviously on paper, that's what a lot of us are. But the agenda that has been co-opted by so many of these, more conservative extremists is what has taken over the movement. So that's why we're in this room right now, because honestly, the movement is incredibly xenophobic and discriminatory in multiple ways. So the ADOS website, ADOS101.com, which Connie and others have steered us to, says that their goal is to change the conversation around the identity of what it means to be African American. And they go on to say that their priorities lie with American descendants of slavery and not minorities, because to them, that is a throwaway category, and they are no way concerned with the matters of other minorities. And that intentionally, they write minorities in quotation marks to prove a point. And they say that Black immigrants and non-Black people of color should be barred from accessing employment and educational incentives, like affirmative action. And they also believe that there should be a noted difference on the census between ADOS and Black immigrants. And that's just some of the glaring red flags that did not take me over 30 seconds to find on the website, because you kept steering us to the website and we found it. It's right there. It says Black immigrants should be barred. Like, it's very clear. I don't think anyone had trouble finding the xenophobia. So it's one thing to address the harm that white oppressors have caused the Black community, which we all know. But when you proceed to act like people who look like you within this country are the only minority who have been harmed on American soil by oppressors and colonizers, it's asinine and it's very telling. And the ADOS mission is centered around creating Black wealth and demanding what they believe that they're entitled to. But the way that they go about it, and a lot of the leaders of ADOS has co-opted it, it's exclusionary. And they make it very clear that they simply want proximity to capitalism or the system itself, not white capitalism, but the Black version, which isn't it's just as harmful, really. And they want to have what white people denied them, but to them, they don't want true equity from one race to another. nor do they want, equity from the within the Black community. They want the tables to be turned, and they want Black people to gain that privilege, which can be wielded over others in a negative way, which is oppression in itself, which can't. And Black people can be they can be racist in places where they have power. Obviously, the United States of America is not one of them, but we can look to Zimbabwe and Robert Mugabe for an example of that. And a lot of the talking points that we've heard really are similar to that. And they're not for the advancement of all Black people, which is what Connie really just made clear when she said she's not concerned about censoring anyone. And when you listen to their talking points, tell me who they sound like. Oh, yeah, they're taking our jobs. Like, that doesn't sound familiar to y'all, like, in any way. And they're not leveling the playing field. That's exerting the power that you crave to obtain. And world history tells us that every time there's a big push in the liberal direction, there's going to be a consequential push in the authoritarian and fascist direction. And we've seen that with Hitler in Germany. We've seen that with Mussolini in Italy. And we've seen that with how Trump took office right after Obama did. And that's because there's always the progression of racist ideas to accompany racial progress. It's never in response to the other. It's always coexisted. There's always going to be racial progress at the same time there are racist ideas in circulation. And we see that with progressive movements like the mass immigration of Black folks from overseas, like from England or Nigeria to America, and Black feminism and gender equity and the uplifting of Black trans folks and Pan-Africanism. And all of that progressive movement has been opposed by the inherently more privileged members of the Black community in America. And before you misinterpret what I said, I made it very clear that there's hierarchy within the Black community in America, and it's not in comparison to the privilege of white folks whatsoever. So when LGBTQ people, who you just mentioned, Connie, and disabled African-American folks tell us there's more urgent matters worthy of addressing than immediate cash reparations, they're told by ADOS and FBA members that there's bigger fish to fry. And members of the ADOS movement don't give a damn about how trans Black folks are being killed and folks with mental illnesses are being denied opportunities because they are so caught up in retaliating against white capitalism that they ignore in-house Black patriarchy and abuse, when in reality, liberation for the most vulnerable is liberation for all. And there are things in the house with Black stateside that we could address that would bring us much quicker progress than waiting for white people to answer all of ADOS's demands, when we know white people don't give a fuck about any of us, and it'll be a cold day in hell before we get a majority of the legislation that we put forward anytime soon. And I have the credentials to recognize that because I work in public policy right now. I work for the Women's Congressional Policy Institute, and I've worked on the Hill for years now. But I'm going to end this by saying that diversity in thought makes us great. So I would welcome all movements that promote Black people to the stage, because they should be on stage. But I think that the way that the ADOS movement has just adopted by the extremists within the group, it contributes to harm of the quote unquote others and the minorities that you choose to set aside within the expansive Black community. And Black people are not fucking monolithic, so I cannot get behind this movement. So y'all need to censor the most vulnerable people, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Hi, I heard everything that you said, and I'll be honest with you, it seems that you're being willfully obtuse. You ignored everything I said. It seems that you come, excuse me, I let you speak. You spoke without being interrupted. You appear to be a person, you're an example of what I'm talking about on here. People come here with their own agenda. You claim to be an egalitarian in your bio. Then you just said we're not fighting for equity, that there's more urgent matters. What's more urgent than putting the needs of everyone?
So when you have Black
Hi, no one interrupted you. I'm going to
you know what? Go ahead.
I'm going to keep talking.
I'll let you finish.
I'm going to keep talking. Yes. So if there are people that want to work on trans issues, queer issues, elderly issues, disabled issues, we support them. We're a reparations group. Why do people feel that we should stop our forward movement, our successful movement, to start working on issues that other people want us to work on? We don't go to police brutality groups and go, why aren't you working on reparations? So anyway, then you said Black people can be racist. No, we cannot. We can be bigoted.
Is that what I said?
Yes, you did. May I finish?
Yes, she didn't say that. She did not say that.
Can you
she
please
didn't say it. She didn't say that.
That's
not what she said. That's not what she said.
It is what she said. Everyone on here
You're
just said
taking
it.
what she said out of context
and
completely.
I'm still speaking, Vanessa. So
that's fine, but you're taking
it. I'm still speaking. So she said, Black people can be racist. A ton of people on here heard you. Black people can never be racist because we don't have the power to be racist.
Did I not?
That's
No,
what this
Connie, I'm
movement.
going to stop
Please
you
stop
there because what
interrupting.
I
No,
will not let
mute
you
her,
do is
please. No
speak
one
over
ever
me and take
interrupted
my
her.
words
No
out of
one
context. I'm
interrupted her
not
when
going
she
to
was
let you
speaking.
do
I'm
that.
going to
I
keep talking
definitely,
over
you
you
can say whatever
because
the
you
fuck
were
you
rude.
want.
One
I'm
Where
not
is
mic,
going
the
one
to
mic,
correct
one
moderator?
you.
mic.
Where is the moderator? Where is the moderator? Thank you. She spoke without anyone interrupting her, and she came with.
Sorry, guys. Real quick. Connie, sorry to interrupt you. But, guys, we're going to keep this civil. Okay, we're going to one mic at a time. Connie, you will be given, Kai, you will be given the opportunity to respond to Connie. All right, Connie, you're Connie, you're up. You can take yourself off mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, anyone that heard me speak, and I thank you guys for giving me that time to speak and set forth, what I believe to be the ADOS ideology. Um, if you heard me speak and then you heard what Kai just said, that to me is the co-opting that we're speaking of. We must stop being divisive. We're not going to center anyone. We are working on reparations. This is a policy based on economic debt. This isn't an ideology based on feelings or who should come first. Our people are starving. We are currently, we will by 2053, we will have zero wealth. Currently, I don't remember the exact statistic. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. Right now, collectively, ADOS have $200 wealth collectively, while white people have something like, I don't know if it's 250,000, whatever. We are 60% of the homeless population. We're coming for the money that is owed us for free wages. Please don't let anybody else frame this fight for collecting our debt as anything other than that. Don't let anybody try to tell you we're against anyone. We are a starving people. That's all this is about. Don't let people complicate it. Thank you so much.
May I also say something?
Actually, I would really like to respond, as I didn't let, or
Yeah,
I didn't
Kai,
interrupt
you're up.
Connie. I'm sorry, Donge, what did you say?
Go ahead, Kai.
Okay, I just want to say, Connie, thank you for that clarification. And I don't think anyone on this stage or in this audience really is under the impression that Black people should not be given cash reparations. Like, I think that's a general consensus. But I will clarify, what I said was not that Black people could just be racist off that. I definitely said very clearly, Black people in the United States of America will never ever be able to be racist or exert oppression within this country. I did not say that whatsoever. I said, but you can look to an example of oppression and racism that has been perpetrated by Black folks in Zimbabwe. And you can see that with dictator Robert Mugabe from that time. So if you would like to look it up, please feel free. But when I say censor the most vulnerable, I said that because liberation, is someone trying to talk? I'll just keep going. Liberation for the most vulnerable is liberation for all of us. So when there's Black trans folks and similar people like that and disabled people who are like, when you have people who clearly have mental illnesses who are holding knives and being killed by several police officers in the street for their disabilities, like when we advocate for disability justice, that is who we are fighting for, the blood that has been shed in the streets to this day. But when you were talking about, oh, there's bigger fish to fry than LGBTQ people and disabled people, there's not. There's literally hierarchy. Some of us Black people, like I'm a straight, a cisgendered Black woman. Like I have more privilege over a Black trans woman or a Black disabled person because I'm able-bodied. And we can't just overlook that. Like, why do you think we can't censor people when there's so much more at hand that needs to be addressed? And if we could solve a lot of that division and uplift all of us, we're so much more likely to be able to advance what we want, which is reparations for all of us, which extends beyond economic. And I agree with you. I think that, in the terms of just economic equity for Black people and getting what we are owed. But when you disregard all the social justice that we're trying to obtain, it's very telling of who your priorities are for. Because at the end of the day, when you say things like that, like don't center people and don't give the light of day to vulnerable Black people, it's very telling that you are not for the advancement of all Black false. And that's all I'm saying.
Kai, when you start your group to censure those people, I will gladly support you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, that ADOS is for African descendants of slaves, right? So that does need to be the focus. But I think what other people are saying is
American descendants.
American descendants of slaves. I think, I understand saying we can't center other people right now, and that's fine, because actually ADOS getting what they're asking for is gonna have an influence on all the other groups fighting for what they're fighting for. I think what we need to make clear here is people are worried that, ADOS is fighting for one thing and they're not considering, for example, like immigrants such as myself who came here. We realize this is the place where our voice can be heard, but at no point do I want my voice heard over an American descendant of slave, right? Because you built this country. So we just have to be very sensitive to each other's pains and struggles and support each other in the best way we can.
Okay,
Kai, I want to. You going? Okay.
Okay, Kai. Okay, here's the thing. We understand that American descendants of slavery are very diverse. You started going into Creole and Boston, people in Boston. We understand that. But we're just asking for the respect of, we're pretty much we have a homogeneous culture in terms of the United States of America, a homogeneous sort of history, just like Nigerians. There's Igbos, there's Yorubas, there's all these different ethnic groups within. Same with people in Ghana, same with people in Somalia. They have different tribes. So that's a very minute sort of dismissal that you're trying to give us. No, we're bonded by a history here in the United States. You also talked about we're xenophobic. The first point on ADOS 101.com, they're talking about minorities. Yeah, the reason why we're talking about these policies such as affirmative action is because we were specifically targeted. Other minorities were not targeted. If I was a family of people who were part of the genocide in Rwanda, I wouldn't go to them and say, well, I'm African American. What about me? What land do I get? Even though I understand that in Rwanda there was a genocide against specific people, what do I get too? These policies that have been created, such as affirmative action, have been created because of the oppression of African Americans, not the oppression of other groups. Do we understand there's oppression all around the world? Yes. But in order for this government to correct the wrongs against us, they must create policies. They must create race-based policies that will help us. You can't say someone is the first Black person in the context of the United States if they're not an American descendant of slavery, because they did not come. What makes such history relevant is the fact that there was slavery in the United States, and there was redlining in the United States, and there was sharecropping in the United States, and there was Jim Crowing in the United States against a specific group of people. So we're not xenophobic by saying affirmative action. There should be a program specifically for African American descendants of slavery because of the policies that went against American descendants of slavery. Also, about centering people. We have no problem with LGBTQ people deciding as ADOS LGBTQ people that they're going to start organizations to mentor, to help other ADOS LGBTQ people. We don't have a problem with ADOS disabled people saying that they're going to start an organization for other ADOS disabled people. A lot of people like to use this word intersectionality. There's always an intersection. Sorry, I hate to be the bad guy here, but a lot of this intersection talk has derailed organizations and derailed a common purpose. ADOS, we sit here as ADOS people, no matter your sexuality. First off, Yvette Carnell is a lesbian. So we don't even understand why we're being attacked for being why we're being attacked and basically accused of homophobia and transphobia. We say that the reason why your grandparents were discriminated against is because they were ADOS. We say that the reason why you can't get a job at a certain place versus white LGBTQ people, white trans people, is because you're ADOS. And that is the legal argument that we are making against this government. We understand that there are different subgroups in ADOS communities. We understand that people are facing different things, but we're going to laws. We're going back to laws that specifically said if you are Negro, if you are of a slave mother, you're a slave. So we empathize and we definitely are here for your rights. But going back to Lucy's question about Black Lives Matter, one critique that the ADOS movement has about Black Lives Matter is that what they advocate for is class-based policies, not race policies meant to correct race-based discriminatory policies. We're not homophobic. We're not transphobic. We're not anti-immigrant. We're not anti-disabled. We're just saying we come as one, as ADOS, to say this other group of people, this system specifically discriminated against us and harmed us because we are ADOS. Sure, you may have been an ADOS person that's transgender, so you have another prejudice that may be against you. We understand that an ADOS person may be disabled, so there's another fight that they're fighting. We're not dismissing those issues. We're just saying we're coming as one to say these laws specifically targeted ADOS people, period. Our ancestors were told that they can't have access to loans because they're ADOS. They can't get land because they're ADOS. They can't move into certain neighborhoods because they're ADOS. And while we understand that, yes, LGBTQ people and transgender people are facing different issues and things of that nature, we're not dismissing that those harms don't exist. We're not saying that those aren't real life issues. We're just saying that the group is about ADOS, period. And if you're an ADOS person, regardless of your sexuality, regardless of your gender, regardless of if you're able or not able, you are welcome into this. And if you want to start little mentorships or things like that nature and reach out to other ADOS teens and young adults and elderly people, you are more than welcome to do that. But don't try to smear us and say we're transgender, we're anti-transgender and homophobic because our agenda doesn't specifically speak to that. That this is you all derailing a conversation. And one thing that people have to ask is, about Black Lives Matter. And okay, then why can't let's ask? Okay, George Floyd, a cisgendered man, heterosexual, Trayvon Martin, assumed to be a cisgendered child. A lot of cisgendered people and assumed heterosexual people have been killed and murdered by police officers. And it's raised hundreds of millions of dollars. But how does Black Lives Matter then say we're centering transgendered people? How does that work? But I'm not here to say we can't. I'm not here to say I have anything against transgender people or anything against homosexual people. But there's an intersection that's going on that ignores a lot of people. The Black men who are in prison, they're all heterosexual. They're all heterosexual, gay, bisexual. They're all female or transgender, whatever it is. But we acknowledge that they have the highest incarceration in the world. Why can't we focus on that? You can focus on the other groups that you want to. And you can say, I'm going to create an organization specifically targeting ADOS, transgender teens and young adults and help them navigate under the culture of being ADOS and how that works. But don't smear our larger campaign and saying that we're being homophobic and transphobic because we're not.
Am I able to respond to Connie really quickly? Or just ask a question, I guess?
Sure. I think it's important, though, to kind of reset a little because we're going from xenophobia into transphobia into, so we're now kind of touching on the sort of different groups within ADOS who have sort of different angles and different gripes. And I think that those things are legitimate differences that will eventually be sorted out, as there are even within Black Lives Matter and some of the other groups, right? And the civil rights movements of the 1960s. Um, I don't know that that we're going to get a resolution if we, go from xenophobia and now broaden it out to the larger kind of differences. Do you agree with the movement? Do you not agree with the movement? Do you agree with the tactics? Do you not? That I don't know. A smarter moderator might be able to guide the conversation a little bit better. But Vanessa, yeah, you can go. But I
When
just
we
wanted
come,
to kind of
Really
when we
quick,
come
I
hope
don't
that
want
we
to take
can
I just,
away. I
I
don't
just
want
have
to
a
that
take
we
away
quick
can
from
question.
ground it in
Vanessa,
that.
but I just want to say that in addition to you resetting the room, Ludi was. I hope I didn't butcher your name. He was when he created this room. He said that he wanted the title to be about the movement itself and not the acronym or the identity of ADOS folks. Just to support what he said.
And then this is Connie. I'd like to concede. Everyone's directing their questions to me. So once you reset, there's Amira Lawson on here. There's Nobly. There's Mecca. There's Maxwell. There's a lot of other great ADOS. Laban, that you guys can allow to speak because I've spoken for quite a while now.
Oh, yeah, can I get next on the list as well?
I can help out with some of that labor too, Connie.
Okay,
Who said that?
Vanessa, that was Majid.
Majay, that was Majay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I couldn't see everybody's name. You know how it tiles on here.
Yeah, Majid says he's a chapter leader in Alabama. So, and he's helped address some of the questions and concerns that some people have. Vanessa, you go, and then
Can I be next?
May I also
Chi,
ask
I
a
think
question?
Sanaya, Mahogany, and then Akima. If we can kind of still keep some sort of order, might help. But Vanessa, you had something to say.
Thank you. I just want to start off by saying thank you, Connie, because I think you are one of the first people I've heard address stuff like really well in a way that is like articulate and in a way that doesn't, for the most part, dismiss other people.
Clubhousetea.
Were you going to say something? So I just saw you unmuted.
Well, thank you for that, Vanessa.
You're welcome. And there was another young lady who spoke earlier on. I think she's gone now. She was an actress and she did a really good job as well. But I have heard a few people who have been in defense just say that when either immigrants or just other Black people in general have made comments about feeling othered when these discussions are had, that it comes from a place of emotion. And I just want to push back on that a little bit, just because I don't think it's wrong to hear someone tell you that they don't consider you a Black person because you don't fall under their ADOS banner and not be offended by that. I think that's a really mean thing to say, and I think it's an inaccurate thing to say. And I think saying, oh, you're just hearing it and you're being prideful and you're just getting your feelings hurt, because that's not an okay thing to say in general. And when I've heard people say that, it hasn't just been randoms on Clubhouse, just been given a platform. It's been people who I've come to realize are quite prominent figures within the ADOS Foundation or whatever it is, the ADOS organization. And also completely forgot my second thing, but I think it's just like, I think we just need to be careful to not be dismissive and to say, just because somebody is questioning why they have felt a certain way when other people have spoken, to not just put it under, oh, you're just being really prideful, or you're just, you're centering yourself in a conversation that doesn't involve you. Because I think someone else said earlier on, I think most people would agree that ADOS deserve, reparations. Like I completely agree. I think you deserve your check. You built America. I think so much of what the West is down to you and on the unfortunate labor that you had to endure. However, I think when we're entering into these conversations and people are looking to learn more and to just have more knowledge of the things that are going on, when the pushback is well, you don't get to be a part of these conversations because you're Black, and that conversation, that person wasn't intending to overtake in any way, but was just asking questions. There's gonna be some pushback, and I don't think anyone then gets to say, oh well, you're just being emotional, because I think, just like you were saying, Connie, earlier on, when certain immigrants are going over and they're othering themselves, I think, okay, wait, no, forget that point. My point is just basically, I think we just need to be aware of how we say stuff, and if people in ADOS are saying stuff that isn't true and are pushing views that are xenophobic and you don't align with those views, I think you need to be vocal about speaking it out, because I've been in several conversations in several rooms where people have said stuff, and it's been in prominent ADOS conversations where it's, the panel is predominantly ADOS, and nobody is pushing back on those views and nobody is saying that. The consensus for people who are listening is going to be, you must align with these views if you're willing for it to be said over and over again and it's going on check. That's just what I wanted to say.
I'm going to say this and then concede. We're going to have hard conversations. We're a Black family. So if we can't speak the way that we need to speak, we're not being rude. No one that's listening to me can say that I've been rude. So me saying get out of your emotions, that's real talk. There's a lot of people here that are just emotional, haven't done any research. So it is what it is. People are calling us xenophobic, transphobic. We're not on here, we're discussing it, but please don't police our tone. We're also injured. We're the people asking for help. So this is simple. Do you support reparations? Yes. Stop the whataboutisms. This isn't difficult.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. My point is that there are going to be some people who are pushing back, and that comes from a place of pridefulness, and it comes from a place of them not understanding, and that's fine. I'm not arguing with you that that's not going to be the case. However, there are going to be some people who have had things said to them by people who are prominent figures within this organization that do fall under xenophobic views, or do fall under anti Black views, as in Black people who wouldn't fall under the ADOS headline, and to clump it all together and say they're just in their feelings, I don't think that is helpful, because that it doesn't fall under that, because those are genuine things that have been said that are not okay. And I think if I was to say to an ADOS person who don't, like I just said,
you just throw out these blanket statements. Name these things that have been said.
So I was in a room earlier on where actually I've been in several rooms where people have outright said that they don't consider anybody Black unless they fall under the ADOS headline.
Never
that
heard
is
okay,
but she
heard it. I'm telling you.
I can answer your question. I can answer exactly where that comes from.
Right.
Vanessa, we understand we understand by melanin you're Black. We understand by we in modern day 2020, we understand the idea that you are Black. We get that. But let's talk about the term Black, where it originates from. It originates amongst African American people because Africans used to just call themselves by their ethnic term. I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo, I'm Somali, I'm Issac. I'm not sure if you're actually in the United States of America. I do recognize that you have a British accent, I believe. But in the United States of America, this is a contextual regional issue. In the United States of America, when you say Black, for all throughout our history, that has meant Black American. Africans themselves refer to them by their ethnic identity. And the reason why we have to use the term Black is because we didn't have an ethnic identity that goes back to Africa. So we can never say, I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo. So that's why you're being told you're not Black. We're not.
So okay, so I understand that definition, and I thank you for explaining it in a way that is is kind. However, like even that definition isn't 100% correct, because there are European countries that were colonizing, where
like in
And
Portuguese, for
just so you know,
example.
Vanessa, everybody doesn't agree with that interpretation. I
That's
mean,
fine. That's fine.
I
But I
think if you look
just
at our website, I mean, we
I
have a
don't
black
agree with it.
agenda. Yeah, I don't
right,
either.
but
If you
Me
look at our
neither.
website, it has that interpretation that there are black
right.
people, but
Umi's
But
interpretation isn't
my
the
point is
popular
sorry,
interpretation.
but my point is to that I've heard a few people say that over today, and that within itself is not a correct thing to think, because literally, like in specific European languages, they also started the use of calling black people black. So, you know, like in Spanish, it's negra. In Portuguese, I think it's about the same thing. So to say that it was specifically started by African Americans in order to call themselves something so they could belong to something is incorrect, because there are literally European languages where Negro literally translates to black. So I think
But
be careful with
why
that.
are we going down these rabbit holes when we've set this forth? Anybody can see this. We have set this forth respectfully, clearly, concisely, historically, and we're still going around and around, and that's the problem. We're exhausted. Why can't we get on code and fight for reparations? This is not hard. I don't get it. No, I would never go to a Jewish room and start challenging them about their fight and their struggle. I've given so many examples, and this hurt feelings thing, it's got to stop. Our feelings are hurt. We're freaking starving. We're starving. And we got to sit here and discuss what's happening in Europe and continental Africa and Jamaica and where the slave trade happened. That is derailment. And all these people, I'll give you an example. There's a guy on here named ADOS Red. He's in the audience. He speaks a lot differently than I do. ADOS Red will tell you he is aggressive to the core. I have no control over him. Just like when people speak for the Catholic Church, is the Catholic Church supposed to be able to identify all these millions of people and how they speak on the topic? That's extremely difficult. So look to our leaders. Look towards our
Your leaders
look
were a
towards
part
these
of the
look
but your
Can I
towards
jump
leaders
Yvette
in?
were a
Yeah.
part of the
Carnell and look towards
conversation.
Can I
Antonio
jump in there
Moore
real quick?
and
But
look
your
Sorry.
towards
leaders were a part of
Sorry.
your leaders were people who have said this stuff that I'm saying. So like
okay,
again, I
so
commend you
point out
because you are
something
one
else
of the
because you've
people.
not said
You are
anything.
one
yeah,
of the
can you tell
wait
us
one
what they
second.
said? Can you tell us what they said, please?
I want to hear all these things that are so hurtful and xenophobic.
Can I say
All right, so
something?
I'm just gonna jump in
Can I
real
say
quick.
something
I'm
real
gonna
quick?
jump in real quick. Yeah,
Sure.
I'll let you go, Sadiq. Just one moment. Just want to squeeze in there. Sorry, I'm on Kimberly's phone now. It's Luty again. Hello, surprise! I have many phones. So, I hear you, Connie. Right? Sorry if I'm not saying the right name, but I think it was you, Connie, speaking from the perspective of ADOS. And can we stay on track with reparations? And I suppose what the issue is, and I think where ADOS may need to take this whole dialogue and discussion and potentially reflect. And by the way, I've got the hugest amount of respect for the fact that you guys are actually doing the work. I sit around making music videos and TV shows, a waste of time. You guys are actually changing laws. I have so much respect for that. But perhaps you could have even more progress than the amazing progress you're already making if you had the coalition, the support, the backup of your diaspora, right? Both in America and beyond its shores, to fight with you and stay on focus with this cause. However, it seems, at least in the context of Clubhouse, that there's an issue happening here, and you're disenfranchising and you're putting off a lot of people, not necessarily you personally, but potentially, because there is this consistent remark of feeling of xenophobia, of basically hatred towards people who aren't ADOS and that are black specifically, and it feels like being divided and conquered. And perhaps if you guys could tweak the presentation, you might actually better your cause. Do you think it would help to have the
Anthony,
support
can
of
you
the
take this,
diaspora?
Anthony?
I'd also like to respond after Anthony.
Yeah,
Me as well. I've been waiting.
Can we go in order?
Me too. Can I speak?
Yeah, I'd like to go with a queue. I wouldn't want to jump in front of anyone.
So
Go ahead, City.
thank you, Sanar. So yesterday was kind of a little tough for me yesterday, right? Because I was in a room
predominantly, I believe, was an ADOS room. And I went on stage. I'm Nigerian, by the way. And what they were talking about, a lot of conversation was had a lot of negative connotation towards Nigerian, right? Um, and I was put in my place educational wise, right? And this is me just being transparent and just being real and honest with it all. And I was put in my place by some key people on stage, and I believe one of them was Laban, extremely intelligent guy, for ADOS, and Camilla and some other person, B. Connie, I believe her name, very intelligent individuals. And like I was saying, they put me in my place, right? In terms of education and understanding their movement and what they are about. And to me, I'm with Nigerians, we're very proud individuals. We believe in ourselves and the way we're raised culturally, the whole aspect. And when I was up there trying to, what I thought I was fighting for, um, the right of the people, the right of my people and stuff like that, I started realizing that I need to go back and do some research, right, in terms of understanding what ADOS is really about, right, and their movement. And as I was researching and to get deeper into their movement is really niche focused, right? It's not really about Black Lives Matter. It's not really about all these other organizations. It's really, really niche focused. And I think that was something that I didn't understand at first, because in my head I was thinking that they were trying to separate all of us Black people from their movement. But if you really go deep into why they're fighting for what they're fighting for, it makes sense to them, and it started making sense to me, you know. And I'm starting, to, and I start. It's not that I'm an ADOS representative. I'm definitely not ADOS representative. I don't follow the movement, but I'm extremely intrigued by the movement and what they're fighting for. And I think based on what they're fighting for and based on what they believe in, it makes sense. You know, if you just open your mind up to understanding where they're coming from, it makes sense. But now here's the other side of thing, right? When I was in that room, there are certain people, right? I think Majay and Connie, and I could and based on this goes towards Majay and Connie, right? And this is basically tying along the side what Vanessa was saying, right? That there are some xenophobic, right, individuals within the ADOS movement, right? Because there was certain individual, as I was talking yesterday before I got my ass whooping left and right by Laban and some other people on that stage. There was other individuals on that stage that were basically shitting on me like, oh, you're Nigerian, you guys are privileged, you guys are this, you guys coming to our country, taking our job. Like, it was crazy. I was like, holy shit, what the fuck? You know, so like there are certain key individuals that have negative connotation. And I think the issue is, right, is making ADOS look bad, right? Because you have those individuals that's not representing you guys in the best light. And after me doing my study and doing some quick research, I understand that you guys have a great purpose, you know, and you guys are fighting for something great, you know, but there's certain key individuals that's in your movement that's making you guys look bad. And lastly, the very last thing that I want to say before I get off this platform is basically at the end of the day, we all are one. We all should find a way to unify each other, and versus singularly leaving certain people out, you know, especially Black people, right? We're all one. We all should be unified in ways that's unimaginable, you know, and it will allow us, and especially allow the ADOS movement to move a lot further, you know. And I think at the end of the day, what they want is people to fight with them, especially Black people to fight with them, versus looking at certain key things that creates a negative connotation to their movement, you know. And I think that's very important in terms of how we go about, you know, trying to see a change in what we're trying to see a change in this world with this whole white supremacist movement. But that's all I wanted to say. And thank you very much for letting me talk and inviting me to the stage.
Thank you, bro. I wanted to respond to that, Sadiq, because I think what yesterday taught me is that what somebody else might see as xenophobic, I might not see a problem with. And there was one particular exchange where somebody mentioned affirmative action, like our affirmative action line item on the ADOS 101 website, and she read it to us, and I was trying to figure out what she thought was xenophobic about it because it states that we wanted to be exclusive to ADOS. We didn't want black immigrants to have access to it. And she was just really, really bothered by that.
Yeah,
And
Majid,
yeah,
before you continue, I know exactly what she was talking about because I was the one
yeah,
I was the one who went to the ADOS101.com website when Camilla
yeah,
was talking about, and I was just intrigued to find out. So there was this one line
yeah, go ahead.
on the about page of the ADOS101.com website. They changed it. I noticed that they changed it. And
Hmm.
I brought it up during that stage. I'm like, why do you guys have this one line about black immigrants coming to this country, about something about being on black people's back? I forgot. But like that really set the tone and it kind of
Well,
pissed me
if
off
you
too.
forgot, what are you saying?
I don't think it was you, Camilla, that was on the. It was a different Camilla. I don't remember your picture. It was a different Camilla.
What
Um,
did it say?
it was basically. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Well, you cut off Maj.
Oh, the OS 101.
Yeah, let me go ahead and finish, and then we'll get back to you whenever
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
find what you're looking for. But the point I was trying to make is what somebody else might find as xenophobic, we don't, and that's one good example. Is because affirmative action was originally intended to be specifically for the descendants of slavery. Lyndon B. Johnson has a quote where he says, "You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him to the starting line of a race, and then say you are free to compete with all others and still justly believe that you have been completely fair." From my perspective, including anybody else besides Black American descendants of slavery in affirmative action or reparations, it isn't fair. And according to Lyndon B. Johnson, it's not fair. So it was intended to be exclusive because we were the ones who have the scars of Jim Crow and slavery and affirmative action and mass incarceration and the crack epidemic. We're the ones who carried that burden. So I understand we live in a world today where like we do the POC thing and we do the blackity black and everybody's black and I'm for everybody black. But I think people think we're doing something wrong when we kind of been giving away everything to everybody for so long. And just because I catch back up to you and I snatch my stuff back doesn't mean that it's not mine. And that's kind of what ADOS is doing. It's kind of reeling back black politics and focusing it on what we need, our specific interests and our specific needs. So I think that's really one good example of how we might look at some things and not see the same thing. If somebody is personally using, ADOS advocacy as a vehicle to spew their own personal animosity or frustrations towards immigrants, I stand against that. And if you see it happening, call us into the room, ping us into the room, and we'll check it, we'll address it. But we're a big movement. We're funded by like small donations, and we don't necessarily always have the capacity to police everybody and everything and what they're saying. But just know that like we're defining the framework and what we believe in and what we're advocating for, and we don't want any hostility to come towards anybody black. So I just wanted to say that.
No, I
I just
respect.
wanted I just wanted to quickly add to that the wording on the website might come across as harsh, but it's actually really harmful to say to a traumatized people who are fighting for change, hey, watch your wording as well. That's exactly what white people do to us as
Thank
black
you.
people as a large. Like, we're traumatized and then we're like having to justify why we're traumatized. It's like a double whammy. So while I understand, yeah, the wording can whatever, that's too much. That's too much to then expect, ADOS to now watch how they're speaking too, and it's too much trauma, man.
Sadiq, I want to ask you a question. I'm going to say what we typically say, and that I'm hearing a lot of people. There's a lot of Black immigrants that are very pro ADOS right now. But I'm going to say some of the things that we say, and you tell me if this is xenophobic, because you guys keep saying exactly what we say and saying it's xenophobic, it's rude, it's aggressive. We need to change how we speak. When I spoke about an hour ago, I made it clear that immigration policy is harmful and has a negative impact, um, a negative socio-political and economic impact on ADOS. So that's a fact. So this isn't directed at just Black immigrants, but I'm going to say the words that you guys keep pushing back against. One of our concerns is all immigrants are getting resources that were meant for us and our jobs. I don't think that that is xenophobic. That is a fact. It can be Googled and researched. When you go before Congress or any party and you're putting forth legislation, you must have facts and data. That is a fact. Now,
That
with
sounds
regard,
xenophobic.
let me finish.
Xenophobic.
Let me
Xenophobic.
Every other country has immigration quotas. So do we. There's nothing xenophobic about it. It's a fact.
Immigration as a concept, I think, and the
We're not talking
mythologies
about
around it
concepts, may I
is.
finish? So I'm going to
What we
finish.
talking
So
about then if we're not
I
talking
was
about
talking,
concepts, sis?
we're talking about facts. So I was speaking, if you don't mind. So factually, and this is why I say people should not be emotional. Factually, if you can show that a policy in the United States is harmful to you, you should push back against it. South Africans were pushing back, saying that all these other, I think, Black immigrants were coming in from Nigeria. Now, they were wrong because they started attacking people. That's nasty. That's xenophobic instead of addressing a policy. So, when it comes to Black immigrants, what we're seeing is that the way that this country is set up, white supremacy is favoring Black immigrants over ADOS, albeit sometimes they're paying them cheaper wages or whatever they're doing. We have statistics to show we are being pushed out of the economy and the job market, and that because Black immigrants are able to come here and check a box that says they're Black, then certain jobs that would ordinarily go to us are being given to immigrants. We are literally being pushed out. If you can show me how that is rude to say or why it is xenophobic when it is a fact, we have to protect
I'll bust
ourselves.
it down for you, Connie. It's xenophobic. It's xenophobic, and it's really simple. Look, it's one thing to say that white people are taking your opportunities or yielding power. It's another thing to go and take scholarships away from African immigrants, right? And this whole rhetoric just sounds like is identified clearly as xenophobic. And I think there's this notion that somehow slavery was the only factor in the West and America building its enormous wealth. But what I think you're missing out here is the understanding of racism as a whole and colonialism, and how colonialism it was not.
Ludi, you're cut off.
Yo.
Driving while Black. So
Can
it's
you
all well
repeat
and
the
good.
last few
It's all well and good
sentences? We
saying that
couldn't hear you.
African.
We couldn't
Oh, you
hear
can
you.
hear me?
No,
No,
not
you
for like not for like 3 sentences or so.
Oh man. Okay, hold on one second.
You stopped at like colonialism.
Okay, cool. What I was basically saying is the idea that affirmative action or that measures made to try and balance. Sorry, one second. Sorry, I got 2 phones in the car. What I was saying is, let me start again. So, intentionally excluding immigrants from benefits is xenophobic. Immigrants are oppressed people, whether they're Black or not Black. I mean, you see what happened with the Mexicans. And so anything which is sort of anti, like saying, okay, these immigrants should get less scholarships or less affirmative action or less of anything that they're already getting is anti-immigrant, and that it has to come from the basic understanding that immigrants are oppressed people. And secondly, there's this rhetoric of Africans coming and taking what African Americans have built on their backs, as if colonialism isn't a huge part of the wealth that the West and America has today.
I mean, even till now, they're bombing out Libya and African countries all up and down the place. So we can't act like the only thing that was taken out of Africa was African Americans. They've taken natural resources too. And this is a big part of the wealth and the power that they have and they yield. And the fact of the matter is, if I'm driving around in America, if I'm British or not, I can still be stopped for driving while black. And if I go
But
up for
that's you're getting off the issue now. Let's stay laser
no,
focused.
it's not. I'm saying it sounded xenophobic. What you just said, that policy
Okay,
sounds
so
xenophobic. And I just told you why.
I finally get what you're saying. I finally get, but just real
Connie, can I
quick, just real
respond
quick,
as an
just
ADOS
I'll give it 30
organizer?
seconds. I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to point out something. You can Google right now African organizations in the United States. Thousands of them are going to pop up. They don't include Black people, but we're not yelling that it's xenophobic. We are also not saying to exclude um, any immigrant from a job, but what we are saying is there are jobs that were specifically meant for us. There are policies and programs that were specifically meant for us, and we want what's ours. We're not saying don't give them jobs or whatever, but we cannot stand by while we are the bottom caste. We are the poorest in this country. So I can't move to Nigeria, Ghana, any place on a Monday and on a Tuesday, start working a job there. I can't buy property and I can't buy a home. But immigrants, all immigrants can do that. To the Black immigrant aspect of that, a lot of the success of Black immigrants is because a lot of people, Black immigrants, we're going to be very specific, are coming here from other countries with a specific purpose, which is good. We'll start with the first one, going to college. So if you come here and you don't start in the hood and have to overcome generations of oppression, um, having everything that you've worked for stolen from you, you're going to succeed because you skipped over all that, went straight to college. Your parents say, put your head down, don't protest. Leave those African Americans alone. So you're likely going to succeed. The other group that comes here, when you're hearing people say you're privileged, there are privileged groups that come here of all ethnicities. So they're going to do well. Then there's the group that comes and they say, well, we're not privileged. I'm struggling. But you yet and still are either coming here for a job or to go to college. That's how the immigration system is set up. So it is set up to favor immigrants that are going to collectively add to the economy. But in doing so, there's a specific group that looks like us that are now able to access programs meant for us. Koreans don't access Japanese resources. Now, there are lobbying groups for the Asian collective, but they even have carve outs. Someone mentioned the census, like that's xenophobic. Yes, just like you guys rep your flags and say, I'm Haitian, I'm Nigerian, I'm Somali, all this. On the census and on job applications, it asks you, what type of Latino are you? And they have specifications. We all have to get real here. If every other ethnicity, particularly Black ethnicities, can wave their flags and be proud of who they are, so can we. If you guys are working together to further your economic status, so should we. We are not anti anyone, but we are going to gatekeep what we fought for 400 years. There are economic set asides that we specifically work for us. So it would be disingenuous to say that it is okay for me to go to any other country and access any other resources that were specifically meant for the natives of that country. I don't believe that's xenophobic.
Connie, do you believe
I
that
was next.
oh, go ahead, doctor. Sorry about that, doctor.
Okay, wait, let's not
say,
ask Connie any more questions for now because she just
yeah.
said that she wanted to concede and give others the floor.
I was
First,
I just
my
wanted
name
to
is
make a
Camila.
comment.
I am
Camila, 1 second, please. Camila, just 1 second. To Connie's point,
okay.
Connie,
Go ahead.
honestly, your point is very, very valid. We do have to be careful that we're not coming here and taking scholarships and opportunities that Black Americans don't have access to because they had to face struggles like rising out of the hood, protests, everything that Black Americans face. So we do need to be careful of that. There is an initiative called the African Diaspora Development Initiative, which is working to help African Americans who want to go to Africa, move to Africa, and start, working as a nurse.
You could literally send them an email today and they will connect you with a nurse in Ghana who can let you come into the country, live with her at her house till you have your setup. So that there are people on the continent realizing a lot of African Americans don't have the opportunity to immigrate and go anywhere else. So they're trying to make that accessible. And that's the kind of stuff we need to be focusing on. How can we work with each other to address each other's concerns rather than against each other? And then quickly to Luti's point, at the end of the day, America didn't just benefit from the people they enslaved, they're also still benefiting from the resources that they're getting out of Africa, which is coming at African immigrants' expense. So there's valid points on both sides here, and we have to keep the conversation balanced and hearing each other's points because there's excellent points being made on both behalves. Thank you.
May I? Thank you, Dr. Altman. I totally agree with everything that you just said. My name is Camila, and I am an official organizer with ADOS LA, Los Angeles. I wanted to first state, contrary to popular belief, ADOS does not have an official stance on immigration. I know that might be surprising to folks, but it's true. ADOS does not have an official stance on immigration. So where you might have folks who are claiming to be ADOS, who are inserting maybe their personal opinions about immigration, I want to make it very clear that ADOS, as an official 501c4 organization, does not have an official stance on immigration. But that doesn't mean that ADOS folks in the organization cannot participate in conversations around immigration, just like any other group or any other political advocacy group. Second, I would like to state that ADOS is not xenophobic. Again, I know folks have pointed to ADOS101.com, but I also would like to point to that website as well to show that ADOS is advocating for reparations for American descendants of slavery, specifically to honor our ancestors who were subjugated to chattel slavery for 401 years, and to honor the descendants of folks who were enslaved in this country who are currently living in the afterlife of slavery. So that means we're currently living with the consequences of the Black codes, of Jim Crow, of redlining, of legislation that American descendants of slavery were historically excluded from. That includes the GI Bill when it comes to American descendants of slavery, military veterans. That includes the Homestead Act, where white Americans were pretty much given an heirloom of sorts that has appreciated over time, giving them access to home ownership in which Black Americans were excluded from. So I think that's very important. I think folks come into these conversations not really knowing the history of the United States in particular. And I think people should take a step back and really dig deep into what the history is in this country as it pertains to Black Americans and the struggles we're going through. That includes mass incarceration as well. To point to the website about affirmative action, as Majay said, ADOS does have a position on affirmative action. That position is that, yes, affirmative action should specifically cater to American descendants of slavery. As it is today, we all know who benefits most from affirmative action, and that is white women. On the website, it says that Black Americans should benefit from affirmative action, although we're seeing other groups like white women, Asians, people of color, other minorities primarily benefiting from affirmative action, where Black Americans are being left behind. So again, like Majay said, you can look up, this is on YouTube, you can look up President Lyndon B. Johnson's speech at Howard University in 1965. The speech was called "To Fulfill These Rights," and it's widely known as the intellectual framework for affirmative action. I will say this again. Lyndon B. Johnson's speech at Howard University in 1965, called "To Fulfill These Rights," is widely known as the intellectual framework for affirmative action. He said, as Majay said, you do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say you are free to compete with all the others and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. Thus, it is not enough just to open the gates of opportunity. All of our citizens must have the ability to walk through those gates. So that position about affirmative action, and that is, again, the intellectual framework for affirmative action, is by no means xenophobic. What it is recognizing the history of this country and recognizing the contributions that Black American descendants of slavery has given to this country.
I've got to jump in right there.
Luti's
Sorry, real
point
quick.
about
Real quick. You
police
said
brutality. No, I think I should finish. I should give have the opportunity to finish very quickly. Thank you. Luti said, oh, when I get pulled over in America, or if I would get pulled over in America, police officers are not will not be pulling out my 23andMe results and seeing whether I'm Black American, whether I'm Jamaican, whether I'm Haitian. Yes, that is true. But as a Black American, I find those arguments incredibly reductionist and highly offensive, because it reduces the Black American experience to police brutality. Our experience here in America is not just about police brutality. And when you reduce the Black American experience to police brutality, what you're doing is dishonoring and disrespecting the ancestors who have been victims of state-sanctioned violence in all different forms. You're dishonoring those 5 Black girls who were bombed in Birmingham in the 60s. You're dishonoring the folks who were walking in Selma with American flags asking for equal rights. So please do not reduce our experience to police brutality. A last point is this, in terms of xenophobia, we cannot just throw these words around. That is a very violent word. Someone said earlier about the South African context, people have died because of xenophobia. People's blood has been shed because of xenophobia. You can look in South Africa right now. Nigerians have had to flee from South Africa back to Nigeria because they're getting killed with machetes. Because there are some, not all, but there are some Black South Africans out there going to their legislators and saying, we don't want these people here. They're taking our jobs. And by no means is ADOS saying that. In fact, if you go to the ADOS101.com, we're going to our legislators to say we want reparations for American descendants of slavery, but we also want a comprehensive Black agenda for every single Black person in this country, which includes Black immigrants. Last point, I'm a founder of the Reparations Club. We host talks every Tuesday. Tomorrow, we've been planning this for weeks. I advise you all to come and attend tomorrow. We're actually inviting a scholar from the University of New Mexico to talk about reparations in the Caribbean context, because there is a collection of folks called CARICOM, that is a collection of Caribbean independent nations that have been engaged in a fight against their former colonial masters to get reparations. Okay, and so my issue is this: if people have all these issues with ADOS, what formations have you joined? What struggle are you a part of to bring reparations for not only ADOS, but again, Caribbeans, Africans? Okay, that is important. ADOS is doing the work not only for us, but for Black immigrants too.
Wow. So Camelia, I hope I pronounced your name right. First off, thank you for that very impassioned
Camila. It's Camila.
And
it's Camila.
Camila.
It's Camila.
Thank you for the correction. Yeah. So thank you for that. And I think everybody, please give Camila a follow. Do go and check out her event tomorrow. I think it's really important the work that you guys are doing. And please, I think what ADOS are fundamentally fighting for here is really important. So no matter what side of the discussion you find yourself on, I would hope that we agree that their core purpose is one that we share in and we should support, right? But just to pick up on your point about affirmative action, because you kind of said it a few times about, the intellectual framework for affirmative action. You said it a number of times and it started to print in my head. And I just did a quick Wikipedia, so forgive me that I'm really going off not the best source of information, but from Wikipedia's interpretation of it, it says affirmative action was really kicked off by John F. Kennedy, and it was saying that
we should not just, it was to counterbalance discrimination against color, creed, race, a nation, etc. And so to try and monopolize it around being a descendant of slavery, although that perhaps is the biggest discrimination one can even imagine, it's just not. It's not completely accurate or true. And so where I take issue with the idea that we should remove
We're not following
affirmative
Wikipedia
action.
sources.
All right,
It's
sure.
Yeah,
So,
that's.
so
we're
I
if
don't
you want
not
to
know.
tell
I
following
don't
me,
know what
if you
that.
Wikipedia
want to
sources. It's been
disagree with
widely
that,
documented. It's been widely documented what the source and the purpose of affirmative action is. It's in actual scholarship, including legal scholarship. We're not following Wikipedia sources.
so okay, so you're saying it wasn't initially about gender, color, creed. It wasn't all those things. It was just how affirmative action started was just about slavery. I'm not sure if you heard my question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ricardo. I've been in it. I've been
I
in and
answered it.
out. You did? What'd you say, Kamala? You want to say?
I was next on the list to speak, by the way.
Oh, copy that. Who's next? Who said they was next?
Yeah.
Chai did.
Oh, when I PTR'd, I'm right before you, Shy. But it's all good. I can do whatever.
Well, let's just Ricardo went ahead and started speaking, so he can just go.
Oh, yeah.
And then
My bad, bro. I
you're
need a
fine.
pull refresh, but yeah, you can go ahead of me. No problem.
You're fine.
I'm gonna be quick though. I'm gonna be quick. I think that just what I wanted to kind of bring into the conversation, and and honestly, I've been a little in and out, so forgive me if someone's already said this, but essentially, I think the distinction we have to make in this conversation is this is essentially a legal argument, and when you, like, for example, we all have public defenders because a face case was brought to the Supreme Court, Guy Gideon, you know what I mean, so that we could all use him as an example of what that legal argument, what the actual harm that was done to create that legal argument. So when you are talking about ADOS, that's not only a distinctive group, but you're also talking about a specific harm that was done to a specific group of people that you're specifically trying to create legislation and reparations around. And so I feel like a lot of times we're conflating our emotions about how we feel socially or how we feel in these conversations about our own experience, or maybe even with our own lifetime, when this is specifically a legal argument as well. And so I feel like that's an important piece to understand, that when you're fighting a legal case, you can't bring everyone's grievance. You need to be very specific about specifically what you're trying to address in that legal case. And so that's really all I wanted to bring into the conversation. I don't know if anyone's really talked about it from that angle, but it seems like, from what I understand, a lot of this started from lawyers doing pro bono work to really address, okay, how can we really win this fight for reparations and not just keep talking about it? So that's all I wanted to say.
I think that, and I'm not speaking on behalf of ADOS.
Exactly, and you can look to Charles Ogletree,
you
can look to Charles Ogletree.
I couldn't hear either one.
Just really quickly, Ricardo brought up a great point. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Ogletree, he is a Harvard lawyer. He has Alzheimer's right now, but he was one of the first Black Americans to really push for Black reparations. Can somebody mute? So quickly, to address Ricardo's point, from a legal standpoint, if you were to take the case for reparations to the court, if you were to take any claim to a court, the first thing you have to have is something called standing. The 3 elements to standing are 1, injury, 2, causation, 3, redressability. So first, you have to prove that you've been injured. Second, you have to show causation, okay, that the person who injured you caused it. And then 3, you have to show redressability, that the court can redress the harm. So in order to have standing, you have to have a concretized, particularized injury, show that somebody has caused it, and then also show that it can be redressed by the court. So even though now ADOS is taking this fight to the legislature, to state legislatures, to the national legislature like Congress, the concept of standing still stands. The reason why we have to be very specific about American descendants of slavery being eligible for reparations in this country is because we have standing. The injury is 401 years. Slavery and the afterlife of slavery, Jim Crow, Black codes, segregation, redlining, mass incarceration. The causation, the United States government has caused it. The redress, reparations. It's
You mute.
Yeah, we lost you.
that was it. But did you hear that? Did you hear it? Like standing, in
Yeah,
order to have
100%.
standing, you have to show injury, causation, and reversibility.
Yeah, 100%. And the only thing I'll add to what you just said is specifically, the idea of actual labor that was, that my grandfather or my great grandfathers, kind of, gave to this country and were never paid for it. So there's just specific things that can be pointed out when you're an, African descendant of a slave versus someone that may have just experienced discrimination for being Black. There's just a different legal argument for those two different things. And they're not necessarily saying that one's better than the other. I'm just saying that from what I understand, this whole conversation, this whole thing started from a specific group of lawyers, specifically trying to figure out a way to address that issue and actually create a legal argument for reparations. And I think sometimes these conversations digress to all these other areas that take away from the original core goal and the core focus.
I wish Leedy was here because I wanted to ask him something. And we essentially see affirmative action as a resource. And what do you call it when a foreign group goes to another country and starts siphoning a resource intended specifically for you? I want to know what he thinks about that question because that's essentially what's happening. Lyndon B. Johnson said, affirmative action is ours. It has our name on it. We see it as having our name on it. And people are demanding that we open it up to other people and calling us xenophobic for not wanting to do so. And that's kind of hurtful because it just doesn't seem fair. And I don't think anybody would expect that from anybody else.
Can we let Shai respond to that so he can have his turn? Or Chai, is it?
Yeah, thank you. I was going, first off, I'll say to everyone in the audience, and especially to a lot of non-Americans, please look at the article in my bio, in my profile picture, because it does, even though I do not necessarily agree with the inflammatory title, it does go into a lot of the critiques that I feel about the ADOS movement. However, I'm going to share a story, right? And then after that, I have two questions that I do want, like, hey, I guess it'll go to anyone in the audience, right? Earlier I heard some, especially I was on stage earlier, and before I left, I heard some comments made about just the fact that me being a first generation Nigerian, I couldn't understand what the legacy of slavery means. And it just fundamentally shows a historical consensus that a lot of people have. So folks know, right? In 1884, there was a scramble for Africa, right? But what a lot of people don't know is that the British went in with the intention of quote unquote ending slavery, but they constituted the slave trade. My great grandfather was a slave underneath the British in the 1880s through the 1900s. And that might track, right? A lot of people know about how the Belgian Congo had slaves in Africa. But a lot of people, what surprised me going into the archives was it wasn't just the British. The US had given loans to those companies. And my grandfather, as a result, my great grandfather was enslaved by those companies who had foreign capital by the US. So I guess I'll continue on by saying, you keep going down through my history, right? You get to my grandmother's generation, right? They're protesting in the Aba Women's War, partially caused by the Great Depression caused by the US. That's an indirect connection. You go on down to the 1960s, right? So Biafra Civil War, my mom said when she was a kid, they used to shout Yankee bomb, because it would specifically be American bombs coming down and decimating the land and whatnot. And that is the reason why I actually am in the United States, because afterwards, the Igbo people were one of the poorest people in the world at that point, after a genocide had happened. And after, specifically, you can even go to the Biafra Civil War Wikipedia page, look at the belligerents, look on who is on the side of Biafra and look at who is on the side of Nigeria. And let me tell you, you'll see the US is the first flag to pop up. So I guess I'm going to end this with my first question, which is this. Given that slavery, and literally in my own direct lineage, my people were enslaved in part by both the US and the UK, given that my mother literally went through a war that was funded, literally she saw bombs and children explode in front of her, US bombs, how do you constitute this when I have to read that, like, I too am not entitled to reparations by the US? And the second question I'll ask, just to be quick, because I was asked this by another person in the audience, how does ADOS incorporate Afro-Indigenous people? We recently saw, I would advise everyone follow this page, the Choctaw Freedmen. Right now they're petitioning because they're under Jim Crow right now. Deb Haaland put them under Jim Crow just last year, as in they are not getting their designated rights. So I'm asking, like, how does ADOS encompass both me as an African immigrant who has a legacy of slavery? And this is a common story that I feel a lot of people do not know, who has a legacy of slavery in part caused by the US, who has a legacy of war, literally the same bombs coming from the US. How does it incorporate me? And how do you incorporate Afro-Indigenous people who have been not only crying out for any type of attention, but also crying out for land back? Because that's another thing I haven't seen mentioned. I don't see folks also incorporating indigenous.
I would like to answer those questions.
Okay,
I would like to answer those questions. Actually, no,
I'm not done yet.
Okay, finish your point. Thanks.
Sorry,
okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
yeah,
go ahead.
Shy, by the way.
I was just gonna say,
but he asked two particular questions.
But yeah, I know you can answer, but
because
okay. So Shy is going to ask the question or finish his point, and then Camila, I hope I pronounced your name right, is going to respond, and then after that discourse is finished, Mando is going to have his turn, and then we'll continue in the order from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, because it really bothered me when I keep hearing, like, I know like some of the Jamaicans have said that, but it really bothered me specifically having going into the archives, because a lot of people often say, like, Africans, you all know your lineage. I can't go further back than 125 years. There are some people in this country, there are a lot of people in this country who can go further back than that. And that was a direct result of US capital involvement. And the fact that I'm in the US is part of a result of US bombs. So I guess I'm asking that point, and then I'm also elevating, specifically it was Vika in the audience, Afro-Indigenous struggles. Like, I don't see any mention of land back. I haven't seen anyone folk mentioning like the Choctaw Freedmen. And those people are literally tied physically to the land, and land back and Indigenous people, I feel, also have a major say in our conceptualization of like America as a racial capitalism project. So, I mean, this is free to anyone in the audience. I know Camila wanted to answer first, but like, I really just want to know how folks incorporate that into their analysis. And then also, again, I'd advise everyone, look at the article, it has some interesting facts. I'm not saying I agree with everything in there, but I'm saying like it's worthy to look at.
Can we put, I think.
Okay, so first I would like to say I am Afro-Indigenous. I'm Afro-Indigenous first. I would like to say that. I know the person who made the Choctaw Freedmen account. Actually personally know them. My people were enslaved by Choctaw Indians. Okay, so first I wanted to preface my thoughts for saying that. So I know you kind of made the gotcha moment, but I'm Afro-Indigenous and I'm an official ADOS organizer. Hold on. But thank you for bringing that point up, because this is a very learning and teaching moment. A lot of people do not know that Native Americans, the 5 quote-unquote civilized tribes, actually held slaves. The Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Seminole.
LaVon, can you mute your mic?
They also...
Sorry about that.
the five civilized nations, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Seminole, the Chickasaw, they also enslaved Black people in this country. People reference the Trail of Tears that Native Americans went through. A lot of people don't know that Black people also had to walk that Trail of Tears, but not as sovereign folks, but as slaves, as enslaved people. Okay. So you're asking how is ADOS incorporating Afro-Indigenous people? We are in alignment with the freedmen who are currently fighting Deb Haaland, who just was appointed by Biden to be the Secretary of Interior, because she advocated for a bill that stripped Black freedmen of their citizenship rights to those nations. So we are very much in alignment with Afro-Indigenous people, because there are people who are in ADOS who are Afro-Indigenous, like myself. So in terms of land back, reparations is not just about a check, okay? Under international law, reparations comes in various different forms. It can come in the form of compensation. It can come in the form of rehabilitation, which can include free healthcare, free education, free substance abuse programs. It comes in the form of restitution, which accounts for the very things that you're saying. Land, and you can look to Tulsa, Black Wall Street. A lot of people think that Black Wall Street is just a story of a success of Black capitalists. No, the people who were successful with Black Wall Street, they were Afro-Indigenous people. The U.S. government gave them land grants. Okay, so yes, reparations is all of that. And to your point about your personal history, I understand, I empathize with your personal history. It's important, but I challenge you. What formations and organizations have you been a part of these past, I don't know how old you are, but these past years to
Black
uplift
Alliance
those
for
very
Peace.
issues that you're talking about?
No, I mean, like, I'm not
this
arguing about like whether y'all are
picture
an
that you have, hold on,
organization.
my last point, this picture that you have of this
You asked
fake
him a
article,
question,
this hit piece, is from an organization, who is mad at ADOS because of the work we've been doing, because of the success we've had in the very short amount of time. IBW 21 has been in existence for over 30 years. All of their leadership are not even baby boomers, but people a part of the silent generation who have not been as nearly effective as ADOS has in terms of uplifting this conversation. That's all I have to say.
Can I ask a question? Can I just jump in here and ask a question to those
When
who
will
are
the turn come?
coming after the ADOS group here? This conversation has certainly evolved from its beginnings this morning, but I'm just wondering if people, particularly, I guess, members of the diaspora, so non-ADOS or non-American descendants of slavery, how they view the self-determined movements of Black America, the self-determined separatist movements of Black America, such as Garveyism, again,
Yeah.
The Republic of New Africa in the 60s, the Black, which was the beginning or one of many in the Black liberation struggle around that time, in the Black Power movement. So I'd like to understand
I'd like to
what
respond to
what's
that.
the nuance between those and ADOS that causes so much tension.
Okay, so I've been in this conversation for the past like 3 hours since this morning, and I've watched it evolve. And the topic starts with ADOS is xenophobic. I've concluded that it's not. That it's not. And what ADOS is just an identity. And that's what you're going at, Gail, when you said, how do you feel about the separatist movements, right? As an identity, I understand the plight. As an identity, it's understood. I am not ADOS. I am first generation Haitian, but I am American because I was born here. And also, I have felt the plight. You can't tell me that I haven't felt the plight of the effects of slavery in America. All right, you couldn't tell me that because I was born here. So the exclusion there that's where the offense would come in. However, I agree with ADOS as to create an identity for those African Americans whose ancestry is directly related to the slavery in America. However, we all know slavery is a worldwide thing, and the black skin color is not accepted with grace throughout the entire world. Now, how I feel about black separatist movements, I feel like is divisive. And that's where the problem comes in ADOS, the divisive nature. Because I don't think what people are arguing is that ADOS is xenophobic, even though it's from the forefront of the argument, that's what's being argued. I think we can all agree that they're not xenophobic, right? From the very core of its heart. But ADOS, right, influences arguments of that nature because of the identity. And that's where I noticed the argument was really not moving forward, because members of ADOS are not realizing that what they're separating is that the identity of Black Americans who's natives, right, to the country and not immigrated, right? They're developing an identity for themselves, right? Now let's say this bill passes, right, for reparations, right? Is it fair that there had been some immigrants who fought, right, during the civil rights movement, right, for equality? And I can name one, Stokely Carmichael. He was Trinidadian. He was not like, I mean,
Harry
he was
Belafonte.
I'm sorry?
No, just affirming Harry Belafonte. I mean, there's another
Harry Belafonte. There you go. So when black people come up with these divisive terms, right, it creates the discord. Now, I will agree that there are statistics show that there are immigrants who take advantage or who siphon basically benefits that was meant for native blacks, right? I'm not disagreeing to that point. However, black people across the board in the United States have a suffrage from the effects of slavery. And to invalidate that, it is insulting. And where the xenophobia comes in is when you're comparing, right? When you're taking someone who's black, right? And they may be first, second, third, fourth generation in America, black, right? When you're
Clubhousetea.
okay, so just let's be clear. No one's taking the identity away. We're not taking the identity away, and we have to remember that all blacks are blacks. The issue here comes is the divisive nature, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
So I've been on here too. I've been on here probably since, I don't know, this group opened up at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So clearly it's been all day long. And I haven't taken, I mean, from the members of the ADOS organization who have spoken really eloquently and have certainly informed me of a number of things, I haven't gathered that they are trying to be divisive, or that they are.
Me neither.
Wait, yeah, let me just speak for a little bit. Or that they're trying to be disparaging. Now, mind you, I grew up, I was born in the United States. My mother was born in the United States, but as I told everyone this morning, my grandparents on both sides are West Indian, and that culture stays, attached at the hip for a long time, right? So I've been going back and forth my entire life. And it's very much a part of who my identity and who I think I am. But let me ask this: does citizenship make a difference? And the reason I say that is because, we can't discount the fact that, a lot of immigrants do come over to the United States to take advantage of certain resources and opportunities, with every intention of going back to their quote unquote homeland at a particular time, whether it be in retirement or whatever. And so what happens to those of us, and I say us very loosely, who may not have that homeland to go back to? And I think there have been numerous instances in the history of the United States where we have tried to establish a collective identity as a form of self-determination so that we could fight collectively in this country, for rights and resources that we have been deprived of since its inception. And I don't know why it's so difficult to understand that, the lack of a quote unquote country or homeland is hugely impactful on kind of, even our psyche and our ability to mobilize as a group. And so I think, the establishment of this identity is that first step. I mean, if you look at, in case in point, Langston Hughes, a card-carrying member of the NAACP, right, from I think the age of 16 years old, between 1954 and 1964, height of the civil rights movement, Langston Hughes was nowhere to be found. And where was Langston Hughes? Langston Hughes, and I might sound like I'm contradicting my point, was actually, on a mission of Pan-Africanism and building bridges with Wole Soyinka, right, to bring him back over to produce plays in Detroit to educate people of their history. And the reason being is because he knew that without a clear connection to your history, you are impeded to envision your future. And so I think if we can, grant some space for each other to, I guess, claim ourselves, to establish ourselves and claim and reclaim ourselves. We don't have to think of this as being divisive or divided.
And
Can I
to
ask a
basically,
question?
that was going to lead the question I was going to ask with Gail. So me being an American, and you could say I'm of Haitian descent, right? However, me being a Black American, right? Where does that place me in the policies that ADOS is fighting for?
Our Black agenda.
I'm sorry?
We have a Black agenda as well, so we're fighting for reparations for us. Go ahead, Camilla.
Right, Mando, you said in your statements, ADOS is saying you're not Black or you're not Black. But if you go to her website...
No, let me correct you.
Listen to what we're saying. We have something, hold on. We have something called a Black agenda. A Black agenda. We have a Black agenda that includes every Black person in America, not just ADOS, but all Black people. We have a Black agenda that includes you, Mando. That's where.
Can I ask a question?
Okay. Now. Okay. This is where my confusion Here's why I asked that question, right?
Mando, can I ask you a question real quick, bro?
No, before you do, can I just so I don't lose my train
Let
of
Mando
thought.
finish really quick.
Okay, here's the reason why I end up asking that question, because the identity gets lost in your legal battles, right? So I feel like I'm just as Black American as someone who says they're ADOS, right? And the agenda gets lost in the identity, because here's where you get people that are bickering about what's truly Black. Now, that's where it dissolves and it creates the discord amongst Black people as an entirety. Because when you talk about immigration, right, you exclude us as, like, I'm not saying you, and I'm not saying that's the core fight for ADOS, and I'm not saying ADOS is saying that, but here's what I am saying. People who claim ADOS, right, when they start to exclude people like me, who I have felt the harshness of the slaveries in America, because I'm born here. So you're telling me I'm not a Black American? So now what you're creating is that discord.
No,
and now you're creating those individuals that are talking about what is, because you can't say that argument is not happening, because that's what's happening, right? With the identity getting lost in what your agenda is. Because yes, I agree with you with the identity portion, but within the fight, and I know you have a Black agenda, but you have a separate one, because someone mentioned that the cash grab, right? Basically, the cash payout is for direct descendants, right, of slavery, right?
Yeah, but
Now,
she also, I think that was Connie, but she also pointed out, like, the descendants of the slaves in America, that's a debt that's owed to them. So for you to come in as the first generation, your ancestors didn't go through that through this country. And she said, like, if you have that grievance, that's fine, but
you could have it with your own home country. I agree.
Well, can I real
I'm
quick, man?
I'm
No,
not
this is
saying
based on what you
Right, there's
just said.
CARICOM, Mando. CARICOM.
Well, yeah. Let me just
no. That's not what.
ask a couple
you guys.
questions
Okay.
real quick, bro. This is based on what you said.
I'm
So you
talking
keep
about the title of the group.
well, you
That's
keep
what I'm
saying
trying to
that.
refer to.
Well, it's going to go to that, but the first one is
Okay.
based on what you just said. You keep saying that you feel like you're Black American, that you're Black American just as much as us. So are you not Haitian? You're not Haitian anymore? Is that what you're saying?
No, I did not say that.
He didn't say
All
that
right.
whatsoever.
All right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like your lineage is still in Haiti. And so the next question I want to ask you and then everybody else who has a problem with ADOS seeking reparations for ADOS. Did you have a problem with Japanese Americans seeking reparations for internment camps? Or did you want them to advocate for everyone who was oppressed at the time? Do you go to the JDL? Do you go to the JDL and rail at them because they got reparations for the Holocaust, but not for all the oppressed peoples in the world at the
Right.
time? Like you're a Haitian. Do you go to CARICOM and tell them why are you guys forming a coalition of Caribbean countries to seek reparations and seek justice? Why aren't you fighting for all of the oppressed peoples in the world? Like, are you making rooms talking about CARICOM is xenophobic? Like, are you making room saying? Are you
Can I
making room
respond?
saying that? Are you making room saying that Jews are xenophobic? Like, you're not doing that. But for some reason, with ADOS, who, like, I forgot the lady's name, who so eloquently said it, we're seeking our identity in this country. We're defining ourselves. We're seeking a justice for a long overdue debt. But for some reason, everyone wants to critique. Everyone wants to nitpick. Everyone wants to talk about us rather than no one is policing. No one is policing the rest of the movements going on around the world. They just want to police ours because I mean the crux of it is we're having an American discussion in America about what America did. We're not going around. We're not going around the rest of the world talking to the rest of the world.
Let Marcus finish his points. Let Marcus land, please. Let's be respectful. Let Marcus land his point.
And then I'd like to go next, please, if possible.
Yes, Anshere is next in line after Marcus finishes his point.
The fact of the matter is, it's like we are here doing the work here, and so now we're having this discussion here. Like if you're gonna have this critique of ADOS, it's your right to have that critique of us, but I need you to keep it consistent and now point out every single institution and cause around the planet seeking restitution and have that same smoke for them instead of us having to explain ourselves over and over what we're doing out here.
Okay, I don't think it's fair that I don't
Hold
get
on.
clear at what I said,
I
and
got you.
someone else is
Come
gonna
on, don't
clear up
have
what I
to.
said. Like,
So
because
I
it
got you.
obviously got lost.
And then if you would like to respond after what I add,
Okay.
then you're welcome. But let me just add some things real quick. So so I'm African American, born in the United States. Part of what I try to sort out in thinking about what ADOS means and like why this is so important to hold on to for people who claim ADOS is that reparations movements in the past haven't leaned on this distinction of us being separate from people on the continent, people in the Caribbean, and people in the diaspora. But the other thing that I really like in the case of what Marcus just pointed out, like why is it that people are not pressing on the Japanese or pressing on the Jewish? And I think it's because as a Black person, I'm not looking at a Japanese person or a Jewish person and seeing myself or like seeing community with them as a member of the diaspora. I'm seeing them as a separate human and a separate experience, a separate culture. But when I'm looking at people who are Haitian and Nigerian and Ghanaian and everything else, like these are my people, especially considering like as a person who has I've had the fortunate ability to do my DNA test, like there's 35% Nigerian, I'm 21% Congolese. Like I literally within my body hold these connections to people who are around the world and connected to me, and their struggles are connected to me. And part of what I find that I'm still trying to sort out about ADOS is like why like for me it seems just a really ahistorical analysis of how movements have happened in America and like negates a lot of the collaboration that we have done on behalf of each other throughout the world. Like just to hit on a couple things, like after the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint and Dessalines like being the first like independent African nation in the Americas, like opened their shores to anybody who was Black, who made the decision to come there. David Walker's appeal was to the colored citizens of the world. Like,
yes, thank you.
People who like Fela Kuti coming here and being inspired by the Black Power movement and that contributing to the work he was doing in Nigeria. Marcus Garvey as a Jamaican coming to America who was inspired by the work of Booker T. Washington, who for a lot of people is a problematic figure, but him coming here to make that connection as somebody who wasn't born here in order to unite Africa and bring people of African descent together so that we could all collaborate together, establishing the United Negro Improvement Association and giving us for what many people is the red, black, and green flag, which unites us all again under a collective and cohesive identity as people throughout the world who are tied to each other. Du Bois being invited to Ghana by Kwame Nkrumah in order to work on the Encyclopedia Africana, Kwame Nkrumah starting the Organization of African Unity, and Malcolm X being inspired by his work starting the Organization of Afro-American Unity, like the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, which was started by Kwame Ture, who was inspired again by Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Touré, like Congressman Ron Dellums, like introducing bills in Congress in America in order to ban trade to South Africa when the apartheid movement was happening. Like there's this very, very long, and even like somebody mentioned earlier, like Stokely Carmichael, also known as Kwame Ture, is Trinidadian. And he tells a story about going to Howard, being at an HBCU, and talking about how proud he was, how excited he was about the independence movements that were happening in the 60s on the continent, and how people who were African American in the United States were rooting for their comrades and their siblings who were on the continent so that they might achieve liberation and we might someday achieve it as well as part of the civil rights things that were happening in the moment. So for me, when I'm hearing ADOS claims about how African people haven't worked on behalf of Americans, how they're coming and they're claiming all these things and there's this distinct history that needs to be recognized as separate from everybody else, like I don't connect to that. I don't see that. I don't identify with that, because for me, when I'm looking at the long range history, it is rife with examples of how we have continually been with worked on behalf of each other and for the collective unification and success of us all. And I think that the reparations conversation can successfully be had, and the argument can successfully be made without this hard line of distinguishing ourselves from other African people, because as an identity, our success, we will be much more successful if we aligned ourselves as the majority of colored people of the world, people of African descent of the world, and we're able to press on the white hegemonic and oppressive structures that are holding us down as a collective, rather than holding on to this identity as American descendants of slavery, when America has been this historically, continually, and violently oppressive institution that is keeping us from our homeland, our true homeland, which is Africa itself, like not in a colonizing way, but in a collective way. Like, we're stronger together. And this deunification and this siloing in on the things that make us separate to each other is ahistorical, counterproductive, and is not going to achieve the ends that we really want to see happen.
Hey,
All right,
Sheree,
so
thank you for your
respond?
comments.
Can
Thank
I
you for your
respond to
comments.
her?
I have a quick question, because what you said, I resonate with. You said, I'm not looking to the Jews or the Japanese necessarily. I find affinity with folks who share the same skin color as me. I think that is an important point to make. But my question to you is this. We have referenced CARICOM numerous times. CARICOM is a collection of Caribbean nations who are taking their claim of reparations for slavery that happened in the Caribbean to the ICJ, which is the International Court of Justice, which is the world court. And they're able to do that. They're able to take their claim of reparations to an institution like the International Court of Justice because they are independent nations. Black Americans, there is no independent Black America. We are here in this country, 33 million of us. There is no independent nation advocating for us. That's why the ADOS movement exists. Okay, so we don't have a CARICOM to go to the world court to advocate for reparations. That's why you see folks from all around the country, just regular Joe Blow Black people, coming together to start a political movement to push for reparations for ourselves. Now, there have been folks who have emailed and have tried to get in contact with CARICOM, Black Americans, saying, how can we be a part of this movement? CARICOM, and this goes back to the standing issue, it's a really basic legal point. CARICOM respectfully says, we can't include Black Americans in this claim for reparations to the International Court of Justice because Black Americans were not enslaved in Jamaica. We're not enslaved in Haiti. We're not enslaved in Guyana. Okay. So, my question to you is, do you think CARICOM is being anti-Black or non-Pan-Africanist when they tell Black Americans that we cannot be included in their fight for reparations?
And then before you
can I
respond,
answer her question
add
before
to
you respond, Marcus? Can
Actually,
I answer her question before
Sheree Tulu was addressed to, so we'll let her respond.
Yeah. So part of what I think, one thing that I think I want to kind of pivot back to again is that CARICOM example is one example inside of a wide scope of examples of us collaborating with and working on behalf of each other. The CARICOM example is very specific. Like, their case is built on the people that they can trace as
and
having.
So is
right. And I think that makes sense. But
thank you.
Us,
makes sense.
I think that hold on, pause, time out. I think that makes sense for what they're trying to build in the Caribbean. But for us, because of the way that I trace the history, we wouldn't be able to say that. Like, we wouldn't be able to make the same claim about our rights to being restored, being exclusively belonging to people who were born here or have had a certain level of experience with enslavement. Because
who said that?
Because
you're literally making our point right now.
People who have immigrated to and fro and worked on behalf of people of African descent who are in America. I don't claim the label ADOS. I understand. So for me, like, as far as like this tracing back, like, I get why people feel like it's important to be able to identify my ancestors were enslaved. But for me, my identity and my consciousness is diasporic. It's not tied to oppressive American structures, and it's not tied to enslavement. Like my who I am, my identity,
That
my
that's
heritage
sad.
goes
That's
to that.
sad.
That's not what we're saying. We're
I
saying
mean,
that
I know, I know. I'm
our
just
identity
saying
is
that
not only
that's
tied to
why I position.
slavery,
I'm
but
not
it's tied
throwing
to the
shade at
afterlife of
anybody who claims
slavery.
ADOS, but
One
I'm
mic,
saying that
one
the
mic,
reason
one
why
mic.
I claim,
Everybody.
Oh no, that sounds like
I mean, I'm not, but I'm just talking about why
And
I
that's
don't
fair. Let
position
her finish
myself
her
as
point, and then
ADOS.
you can make your point.
Um,
Go ahead, Ashray.
so it makes their position, the Caribbean position, is not the same as our position, but also, does the Caribbean position mean that they are not supporting our work for reparations? Like, there's been an international conversation for a long time. There's the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. There's the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Like, there have been communication lines that have been open beyond our current experience, where people have collaborated, put think tanks together, done like global and international conferences about how best to achieve justice for everybody, and not justice based on our land claim or where we were dropped off as far as like the trade in human beings that happened 400 years ago. Like, I don't understand why ADOS is so dedicated to this, the siloing. Like, we can achieve reparations in the Caribbean, reparations in the United States, reparations on the end of colonialism and economic exploitation on the continent. Like, we can do all of those things, and everybody who is coming here can enjoy the rights and liberties and victories and all the things if we dedicate ourselves to really working on behalf of each other. That I can get behind. Like, the disposition of the people who are shouting ADOS from the rooftops, saying that only certain people deserve certain things, is something that I can't dedicate myself to.
Yeah, and
So
so
can
quickly,
I
here's the
respond
point.
to that
Go ahead,
real
Marcus.
quick, Camila? So, number one, you made our point when you just went through the specificity of CARICOM. Like, you literally made our point. But then number two, like, it's odd to me because people just want to key in on the reparations portion of what ADOS does. Like, I've had to say this shit like 4 or 5 times over the past week, and it's not because I'm trying to big time or brag, nothing like that. I'm just saying what it is, because people want to talk about what we're doing and what we're not doing. I'm gonna tell you what we're doing. So I'm in ADOS LA. We have met with Mayor Garcetti. We met with Karen Bass. We worked on reparations bills. With Mayor Garcetti, we talked to him specifically about jobs at the Port of Los Angeles, the largest port in the country. And we didn't say, we didn't even specify ADOS. We talked about the need for more Black jobs at the port because there wasn't representation. The Rams Stadium was being built where I'm from in Inglewood. It's up now, but there were literally no Black people working on that stadium. And we talked to him about the need to diversify the workforce there and get more Black people in there, helping to build that stadium. When we talked with Karen Bass, Karen Bass, I believe it was about April or May. And one thing we talked about, it was the real height, and well, not the height, but it was the beginning of the height of COVID. We talked to her about COVID relief for Black people in Los Angeles and California. We didn't specify ADOS. We just cited the numbers of how Black people were dying and talked about these resources or these steps need to be taken to alleviate the death and dying of Black people due to COVID-19. So it's like people continuously want to key in on the reparations portion, but completely overlook and leave out or willfully ignorant about the Black agenda. And I don't understand that, because, man, and like I said, I have to keep repeating this. We are out here working day and night, like, for real. Like, this is second job for us. For all the people who represent ADOS on this stage, this is second job for us. So we working to get these reparations, but we working for all our people. I think I don't know if Tiffany's been on the stage, but Tiffany frequently talks about how her grandmother is Caribbean. Myself, one line of my family came from the Bahamas. So it's like we have these ties and we're working for all our people. But then, to go back to the CARICOM point, I think you need to speak for yourself when you talk about not being able to trace lineage and ancestors on that, because CARICOM is specific. Because myself, I can trace 3 parts of my family tree back to slavery. So, like, I think we need to restrict that to our individual selves when we talk about that. So it's like, I say all that to say, this just doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense. We have a specific claim with reparations, and then we have a Black agenda for all. How many times, how many ways do we have to say it?
Okay,
Marcus,
I think you made
want to.
yourself very clear. I'm sorry to talk over whoever I just did. But whoever speaks next, to address what Marcus and Anshere just said, please keep it brief because there's a lot of people on the stage who really want to get their points across. So whoever responds next, I don't know who it was, but whoever unmuted their mic, they can go ahead. And then we're gonna get on with Progressive Action, and then Alyssa, and then Tessie.
The quick point that I wanted to make
a real quick comment. I just want to say this real quick, and
well, can I say something and then you can respond to both?
Ansha was who the question was addressed to, so she can respond, and then Camila, you can reply, and then we're going to have to move
I just didn't
forward.
want it to turn into another back and forth. That's why.
Okay, thank you.
Your points right now, and then we're just gonna have to move forward.
Yep. So ADOS, I can see and understand the work that you're doing on behalf of the collective. And there are other organizations, Movement for Black Lives Matter specifically, who are able to do that